Have to gavel.
On Form A, someone have that?
So that was submitted by Attorney Riley and Mr. Garvey, and it's, they're not here tonight, but it's Frank Makowitz's old property
Right.
off of Randolph Street. You guys did a subdivision of or you put lots together before. So this is carving off, I think, the McMahon property from the rest of the nursery.
Have you all had a chance to look it over?
So I assume the bounds are the stone wall?
I believe so,
Marks.
yes.
And now the property becomes landlocked?
It's merged onto this one.
Oh, where do you see that? Oh,
So they're saying it's not buildable, or that they can't build it with what they have? Do you know?
Lot
Guess it
1
doesn't
has
matter, but-
conforming frontage, and the area remaining land is being combined with abutting land of McMahon, is what it says on their application.
Didn't they already Form A off part of this?
They
yeah,
did.
I think so, yeah.
I thought they did to the,
I thought so too.
Yeah, a couple of
it
years ago.
appears to be larger now than it was before.
You want me to go see if I can find it? All right, while I'm doing that, if you could release the, I'll let you do that. Release the bond we're holding on Central Street. I did speak with that neighbor, and everything's working as it should be back there.
So request to release surety held on Central Street Swale, construction and Jenks.
Where is that exactly?
That's
That was Plymouth Street and Central Street. It was the road that went way back off of Central Street.
right near the,
We raised that land 5 feet.
that's what we had, we were worried about.
That's right, that's right. Nobody's heard a complaint about that?
No.
Okay. We've had a lot of rain, so we would have heard something by now.
Please?
We've had some rain, so we would have heard something by
Right,
now.
right, no, and you haven't heard anything either, Bob, right? No.
I asked, and they said there weren't any problems. They were just concerned about who was gonna maintain the swale, but what are you gonna do?
Okay. Motion to release?
Motion made to release, have a second?
A second.
Seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 So moved. All in favor?
Thanks, John.
Anything that, on the zoning board of appeals agenda that you have in front of you?
Well, we're going to be talking about it all tonight.
Please?
We're going to be talking about it all tonight.
Well, some of it perhaps, but is there anything you want to?
Nothing for the zoning board from,
Please?
nothing for the zoning board from my end.
No. Someone want to make, we're all set with it, nothing to do? Okay. No action taken. Appointment of a board member to Ames Knoll Master Plan Advisory Committee, and Rick Collins is currently the appointee.
Next week, we're actually meeting with the Board of Selectmen to present the final plan, effectively. So the committee will be around for about 1 more week.
And you'd like
Yeah.
to stay on that committee?
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone like to make a motion?
Motion.
Motion made,
Second.
seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you.
I'll be more than happy to brief the board afterwards as well.
We have a discussion, but I really would like to have, on the Carriage Hill residents denying access to the roadway. I have a real problem with that, and I mean, obviously, the planning board hasn't talked with anybody there, and maybe it's time for the planning board to talk. But I understand some people would say, well, you know, it's something, you know, the attorney's asking us and the developer's asking us, and we're not gonna do this, you know. I mean, we have property owners that have a problem with water on their property, and it's something that should be handled, and obviously, there's eventually gonna be ice in the road, and these people are gonna be traveling over it. I know I can't tell them what to do, but for the life of me, I can't see why they don't want to have that done, and I think that it needs to be really explained to them by people that perhaps they would understand. What's the feeling of the board?
Could we draft a letter explaining the necessity of doing this and, you know, urging them, you know, sign it, all of us could sign it, just urging them to sign off on this?
I'm not sure whether I understand that's one way of doing it, but I'm not sure that what face-to-face contact might be a better idea. I don't know.
I'd be interested to find out from Attorney Riley who is opposing at this point and see if we can go talk to them.
Yes.
I know one of the neighbors up there that I know that could probably do an introduction.
Okay.
So if it's okay with the board, I can take a stab at
That would be
doing that.
fine with me.
Okay.
The rest of the board in favor of that?
So Rick, you want to facilitate this thing?
I'll facilitate. And if they want to come before the board, we can coordinate that or
Absolutely.
report back.
Yeah. But I just, at this point, for us to release the bonds and everything else, and I think we make a serious mistake in doing that. Mr. Egan has said that he would do it at his cost, and obviously, I think that's in the best interest of all the people involved.
It's not something new, though.
Please?
It's not something new up there.
No, we've been going after, and two of the people had sold their house, that didn't want anything done while they were putting their house on the market. Obviously, they have left, and we're still at the same point.
No, this is the old one, so we'll try to figure out what the difference is.
Yeah, okay, I'll let you take this away.
Oh, no, I'm gonna leave it
okay.
right there.
All right,
Let you guys.
you want to look at it through there. So evidently,
Oh, they're making this larger. Small. No, that's what it was. They're making that smaller too.
20843. So.
Thank you.
So this approved. It's going to be on that committee. Ames Knoll Master Committee. No action on the ZBA. And
Okay.
Carriage Hill, Rick's going to facilitate discussion. Face to face.
1843.
With the neighbors?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Okey-doke. Thank you very much.
1843. So
Do spelling errors have to be corrected?
this now,
nobody goes the same way as it did before.
no,
It's close.
no, and then this is moved over here.
So is it just that one lot there?
No, you might want to come over and take a look at it, because it's hard for you to understand it from a distance.
Other than that one lot is,
This goes back
Oh,
like this
sorry.
now.
Gonna thumbs up there. Thank you.
This is the plan that they came in before with, and this is the new plan.
So what they did is they added, you see here, the 21843 frontage.
Right.
They took the 110 and the 10843
Combined.
and combined those two. So now the line comes back, follows this.
200,
And then there's a stone wall here somewhere.
So there's a line missing?
and this still goes 21498, the same, this lot stays the same now.
so they really just changed this combined.
They combined these two lots, and then
They
cut,
broke off this
Why isn't
piece.
that line on that plan here?
what's that?
I would think this line would still be here.
See, it is over there.
That's the old one.
The old one.
They just broke off the rest of this 9, well, it's 9 acres now.
But what's not on this plan is a stone wall that's here.
They surveyed it, yeah, surveyed it before, had that line.
They made lot one bigger.
Is that
It's
wet
really
at all?
all.
Please?
Is this wet at all? Is this all?
I don't think it makes any difference
Doesn't
to
matter.
us.
I was going,
This comes back.
Yeah, it's the same distance
Yeah,
back
this
to
goes back.
1498
And over.
and 67.
I would assume that somebody wants to keep using this property as they are currently. That's why they made it bigger, to include the greenhouse. There's a tree company in there now. They probably want to continue, but keep the rest of the back 9 acres.
I mean, there's no
Maybe
reason.
they're selling it to the tree company, who knows? Doesn't matter.
So, I mean, there's no reason we can't approve this. It's,
No, just approval, not
It's
required.
frontage in there.
And that lat, well, actually, the West Abington Cemetery is what's sitting there. That stays exactly the same.
Yeah. Make the motion, approve and not required.
Motion made,
second.
motion seconded. Any further discussion? On the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Unanimous. Thank you.
How many of these you need, Liz?
I think four there, and the Mylar.
Yes.
I think that's what I need. Oh, I'm just gonna have you sign the application if you don't mind.
In the special. I do it first. Seven.
Thank you.
Can't really do this, Dave, so it's like-
It's all good. Right.
We want to do the stormwater management at this point, which is going to probably take some time, or do we want to?
why don't we push that off?
Off to the,
Please.
I-
Put it at the end.
To the end?
yeah.
Site plan review on 207 Bedford Street.
She do.
The Abington Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, June 7th, 2021, at 6:05 PM on the application of Lamb and Piku Nyken, 207 Bedford Street, Abington, Mass., for site plan approval pursuant to Abington zoning bylaws number 175-77, to raise an existing single-family dwelling and then construct an 11-unit residential building. The property is owned by Lamb and G.P. Nijin at 207 Bedford Street, Abington, Mass. 02351. The property is located at 207 Bedford Street and located on Assessors Map 23, Lot 25. Plans can be reviewed at the Town Clerk's Office, Wayne P. Smith, Chairman, May 24th and May 31st, advertised in the Brockton Enterprise.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is Greg Tansey. I'm with Cross Engineering, and I represent my client, Lam Nayujan, who's right here with us now. And before I get started, is this can everybody see the plan set?
You know what might be better, I know we haven't really got a microphone there, but unless it could be, maybe behind this mic, put it up against here so we can, and the public can see it too. You could sort of face it so that the public can see as well. Okay, thank you.
Sure. So as what was read into the record, the site is at 207 Bedford Street. There's a single-family house there currently. The applicant and owner is currently living there. And we propose to raise that structure and put a new residential multifamily building in it, just to orient yourself. This is the existing building. It's a single-family house. There's a driveway. This red is the setback distances, as you can see. The existing house is a non-conforming house with respect to the front yard setback. There is a grove of trees in this area, and we intend on preserving as much of that treed area, the natural vegetation, as we possibly can. This is the site plan layout. The green square is the proposed building footprint, and we are proposing the parking lot, as you see, the paved, the dark area, and it will be a one-way traffic flow. It will come in off of Bedsford Street, and the point of egress would be off onto West Chapel. And you can see right in here, this is the area of the dumpster, and that has easy access. And these spaces are all very accessible. The main entrance would be at this point here, and it's an easy access from the building, and from just about anywhere on the parking lot. The layout, as you can see, we've got a total of 21 parking spaces, which meets the zoning requirement for parking spaces. And I obtained from the fire department and the manufacturer of the fire engine apparatus curved templates of the fire engines, and they can negotiate in and around this corner and access the site without cutting into any parked vehicles along the way. They can actually have, if they needed to, access to all four sides of the building, which is somewhat unique. Most sites don't necessarily offer that, but in an emergency situation, that could actually be achieved. And we are also proposing a landscape retaining wall to meet grades around the perimeter. The next sheet is a utility plan. We intend on tapping the existing water main out on Bedford Street. There's going to be a domestic water service connection along with a fire flow connection. Of course, the sewer is going to come out right in the middle, and then we've got a gas off to the right as you face the building. An existing telephone pole, it's going to have to be moved about approximately 12 to 15 feet, and it's overhead wires now, and it'll remain an overhead a wire to light up and power the building. We also have a subsurface drainage system that will serve to capture, collect, pre-treat, mitigate, infiltrate, meet the recharge, and of course, control peak discharge rates. That's our utility plan. Again, this is drainage and grading. Again, the green square is the proposed building footprint. The blue, this is a subsurface, it's a galley drainage system. It's an infiltration system. It stores runoff, and it infiltrates it into the ground slowly after a storm, and disposes of the storm water. We also have, these are shallow lawn basins in here. When it rains heavily, runoff from the roof will collect in them. They will have a shallow puddling during the storm, and most of the water will infiltrate. Some of the water will be diverted and drained into this galley system that I spoke of earlier, and this will prevent long-standing water conditions. Typically, these lawn areas, you can expect them to be drained dry shortly after the rainfall event. And these rainfall events that they have been designed for are the 210 and the 100-year storms. So that's what we're proposing there. There's a swale here, which is just a grass gully, and what that is going to do is it's going to prevent runoff from going off the site here, and it will collect. And again, it's another shallow drainage basin, and a lot of that runoff will infiltrate into the ground. Right now, runoff, when it rains, it flows in a direction like this, and we're not altering that flow pattern, but we are improving it. We're lessening the amount of runoff that will come off these property lines because of the drainage system that we have on site. Again, this is a landscape plan. We're going to add a few more vegetative buffer just to screen the parking area. We've got some screens out here, but we're going to put some more screenage right next to the parking area, right here, right here, and right here. And that will just make it all the more difficult for traffic that drives by to see the parked car row on either side and on this side. And what's really nice about this is when one vehicle is screened, the whole row gets screened because one vehicle will be behind the other vehicle. So that's a nice feature that this particular layout has to offer. So that's our landscaping plan, and we anticipate a little bit more detail than this. A professional landscaper is going to be specifying certain plantings that will look nice. They also spec plants based on survivability, coloring, resistant to disease, water drought tolerances, and et cetera. And that will be forthcoming once we get, you know, the initial comments out of the way. And we've got a lighting plan. We will be making some adjustments to these lighting fixtures. They're gonna be similar. We're gonna make some modifications and make them meet the color temperature range that the bylaw has specified, and just making sure that the intensity is adequate in and around the parking area. Right now, the lights are concentrated in this area because pedestrian traffic from the parking lot will originate here, here, and of course in here. And they'll go to this main entrance here. And as you can see from this, the light intensity, it's strongest right here at the door, which is what it should be. And then it becomes dimmer and dimmer. And, you know, your foot candles at the property line go down to about 1, some areas 0. You don't want it too bright, you know, more than what you would need, because it would result in light trespass off the property line. So
Where is it going to
So wait,
concentrate?
after
at the door, ma'am.
On the Bedford side?
after the presentation, Dan,
Oh, I'm sorry. I
we'll
don't know
answer
how
all your
this
questions.
works.
You can stay there and look as long as people can see around you.
So we do have a little bit of work. Mr. Driscoll has asked me to make some modifications to this to make sure, verify what's going on 25 feet over the property line, just to make sure that there's not an excessive amount of light trespassing across the property line. And that information will be forthcoming. And the remainder of the plan is basic standard construction details. I don't know if it's necessary to go through them all, but it's just details of how the parking lot is going to be constructed with the various subgrades and pavement layers. The same thing with the berms, the dumpster area, of course, the lighting areas, bollards. This is the privacy screening fence around the dumpster to enclose it. And these are drainage details, the standard details of the galley system, recharge system that I spoke of earlier, your standard catch basin, a lawn catch basin, downspout gutters. This is a rail, a wood, a post and rail fence for safety. And these are our standard utility details, water mains, sewer, gas, a detail of the accessible parking space, a trench opening detail, again, the water service detail. And then our erosion control, this is what goes on during construction, how the site is managed as far as handling and managing excavated soils, construction traffic, making sure that you don't have sediment tracking out onto either Bedford Street or West Chapel Street from heavy equipment such as dump trucks, et cetera. And it's just a way of managing and organizing the site during the construction phases. And all this is just protocols on keeping sediment on site, controlling it, schedule for it to be hauled off the site during various phases of construction. And again, these are more erosion control structures such as sedimentation barriers, check dams. We've got a detail on how to dewater trenches if excavation occurs during the wet season, if a groundwater table is encountered. There's just various protocols to control that construction activity. And then we do have, this is basically what the building is going to look like. It's preliminary. It's not. This is not a final rendering, but it's pretty close. And it's got some nice architecture to it. Some balconies and foyers. That rendering is a little bit dark, but you can see from a 3D perspective, it's going to be a nice building. At this point, if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
What we'll do is, you can sit down and be more comfortable for a minute anyway. Mr. Driscoll from PMP, comments.
Sure. Hi everyone, Greg Driscoll from PMP Associates and Construction Engineering. Mike Peralt of our company did the review for this. He's unable to attend tonight, so I'm here in his place. Put together the review for the
Mr. Chairman?
project.
Yes.
Could he swing around to the side just so he can project for the audience as well?
Or stand at the podium.
Sure.
Sure.
Wait a second, let me move this. You can sit right here and you can, he just wanted you to face the audience a little bit more.
So we submitted the review, I think it was last week, the 31st. And I apologize, I got it out to you a little bit slower than we got it out to the board. And I don't believe you had a chance to go through all the comments and revise the plans and all that stuff, so.
I went through them quickly. I made
Yep.
some margin notes, but no, I haven't really digested the whole.
Yep. So here tonight, we were thinking that the applicant and their engineer would present the plans, talk about the project, gather more feedback from the board and the public, take our comments and comments from the board and the public, and incorporate that all into the next set of plans that they revise. Did anybody from did you guys get the chance to read through the
Yes,
comments?
but
or anything
maybe
you want
if
to
you
look
went
at?
over it, it would be good, if you just touched on it,
Okay.
for everybody the public to understand.
Sure. So we'll go through and we identify the use. It's an allowed use, it's a special permit use actually, in the TC district. There's also special provisions for the transitional commercial district. There's parking in the side yards, so we asked for proper screening, so there's some revisions they'll have to make to the Landscaping plans. There's another comment about buffering between this use and existing residential uses. And next comment, landscaping, signage, architectural elements of the proposed uses shall be of high quality. This is the quote from the regulations, and consistent with existing buildings to reflect the historical New England character of the town. So maximum consideration should be given to the building design and landscape elements to improve the streetscape of the district. So I don't know if the board has any comments on the elevations of the building that we saw that you might want to give them feedback on.
I'll talk about it later.
Want to continue on? Can you talk about that later?
No, we'll continue with the,
Okay.
when we're done the list.
All right, off-street parking and loading regulations, there's a couple of parallel spaces that we'd like to see some dimensions on, just to make sure that they meet the regs. Environmental performance, sheets 6 through 11. Also, do you guys have a copy of the markup plan set?
Yes.
So all these comments have markups showing what we're talking about on each of the sheets, so it's easy to follow along. So we want to show the area of natural tree covers to be protected. So what's the new tree line going to look like where the clearing ends? And that should also be shown on the grading plan. And also provide a barrier fence to protect the area. So during construction. Planting schedule on the landscaping plan, so the different types of plants that will be used, usually the botanical name and quantities, and a chart on the sheet. Sheet 3 of 6, sheet 3 and 6. Since the proposed multi-unit residential use adjoins existing residential properties, a buffer strip of at least 20 feet in width should be reserved. Please address. Please provide the height for each luminaire on the plan. Yeah, we didn't see that there was pole heights for the lights. Please extend the photometric foot candle data to 25 feet beyond the property line, which Mr. Tanzi had mentioned in his presentation. Please specify lights that meet the color, temperature, and range. Wall pack lighting should not be used as direct illumination beyond 25 feet from the face of the building. Address that. Okay, sorry. So administration and performance under site plan review. It's a requirement that the general soil types be shown on the appropriate plans in the plan set, and the hydraulic soil group, that's a drainage calculation thing. In order to adequately show the general characteristics of the adjacent properties within 300 feet of the project, please provide an annotated aerial photo on sheet 2. So it'll be an aerial photo of the site showing different elements beyond the site, showing the area a little bit more detail, more context, I guess. Sheet 3, please show the proposed pavement markings and signs associated with one-way vehicular circulation, and details of the pavement markings as well, and signs if they're not on there. Sheet 6, please call out the buffer dimensions, including the additional requirements for the boundary along the residential district, as well as compliance with landscaping. Another comment on sheet 6. Please provide a cross-section of the front elevation of the proposed retaining wall, including general technical specifications due to the height of the wall and location adjacent to property lines. So generally, retaining walls that are over 4 feet in height have to be designed by a structural engineer and usually approved by the building inspector. So we want a little more detail on what type of walls they want to use. It could be a pre-engineered product, and that manufacturer would have to provide stamped plans before a building permit could be issued. Drainage calculations and design. Soil testing, please provide the name of the certified soil evaluator, testing date, and name of the town official who witnessed the soil testing. They do have the logs on the plans, but just a little additional information on that. Please provide a sheet reference for Section A through the subsurface recharge system. So they show a section of it. Just want to add more detail on the sheet for that. Please provide dimensions from the edge of the galley unit to the stone, galley unit stone surrounding the system, to the building foundation and the block retaining walls. Something the structural engineer should take into consideration if there's going to be lateral pressure from the water. Please provide design details, sections, data for the shallow lawn basins 2 and 3. Include peak water elevations for the various storm events being controlled by the proposed lawn catch basins. So that could be a section view of the basins and listing out the elevations of, the peak elevations of each storm, design storm. Please provide design details, sections, data for the water quality swale and the shallow lawn basin 1, including.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we could, a lot of this is housekeeping things, but it doesn't really highlight. I'm wondering if we could focus on things that are not fitting within the zoning or not fitting within the setbacks, and because I think some of them, marking the height of the lighting, of course, everything in your list needs to be checked forward. But I mean, as far as being able to review the project overall.
Yeah, a lot of this next couple of pages is all a lot of drainage type of stuff that are technical in nature that we can
And
work out.
also, Ross Engineering didn't receive this letter until last Friday.
That's Friday.
Yeah. So they,
So yeah, the rest of it is all drainage stuff if you want to stop
mostly
there.
drainage.
Do you want to go, is it page 6? Where there's just some lighting and stuff like that.
Well, lighting, I'm sure if the questions come up, we can probably answer them.
Deficiencies? What about in general deficiencies of missing items?
It says on page 6, sheet 7, it's about 2/3 way down this page. There's insufficient lighting at the driveway entrance and for the parking area from the rear of the building towards Bedford Street. Please provide additional fixtures in this area. Please show directional signs, stop sign and exit, and if proposed, sign for the apartment building, like a general sign that would need a sign permit. Provide the elevation sketches or photographs of the proposed exterior architectural appearance of the building, which we saw tonight. I don't know if those were submitted prior to tonight.
No.
So we'll need copies of those submitted. Please connect the sidewalk from the parking lot side of the building to Bedford Street to the Bedford Street sidewalk. Please also provide a sidewalk along West Chapel Street from Bedford Street to the driveway. So pedestrian access to the site. And then conclusion on the page 7, at this time, in our opinion, the plans and supporting report are not adequate to meet the zoning requirements. It's our recommendation that the board continue the public hearing until such a time that the owner and design engineer could fully respond to the initial comments.
Fine, thank you. The public have any questions, or?
Can I ask a quick question
Surely.
first? You said it's a special permit use. Does that mean they have to file with the zoning board?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, that was-
Actually going before the zoning board on the 10th of this month.
I believe that was in the summary in the stormwater report. I read that.
Okay.
Yeah, we have it in the
ZBA.
All right.
zoning board of appeals letter, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Julio, sorry.
And that will be Thursday, June 10th at the Abington Town Hall at 7 PM on 207 Bedford Street with the zoning board of appeals.
We have a few questions over here.
Sure. Listen, did you want to speak first?
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions.
All right, go ahead, Rick.
Part of the site plan application includes a project narrative and, as our engineer said, elevations. So we need both of those before we can consider the project.
With floor plan item in there.
Floor plans, there's a bunch of missing pieces from this application that we need to get included. Can you talk to me a little bit more about these retaining walls? So it's not the front area that borders Bedford and West Chapel. It's the part that borders the residential properties around it?
Correct.
Okay. And am I reading this right, that the retaining walls are gonna be about 7 feet high in some spaces?
In some spaces, yeah, the max height would be 7 feet for a relatively short distance.
Oh, between about 5 and 7 feet? Because the property slopes back,
Yes,
so you're gonna have the parking lot level.
correct, correct.
And then below the retaining walls, there's going to be a retention basin, or a swale. A swale's probably more correct.
A swale, just a shallow lawn basin, just to let the runoff settle, infiltrate, and then it will control the drainage pattern so that it will mimic what's there now, only there'll be less runoff.
I'm sorry, could you use the microphone again? Just. So, the swales, is that collecting water that goes around the parking area, or where does that water come from that would go into the swale?
Yeah, the water that comes from the swale originates from the front area of the parking lot, the area that's closest to Bedford Street. And there's a paved spillway up near Bedford Street where runoff just flows into a grass swale, and it runs along the side of the property, and it'll be controlled, and then it ends in a shallow basin up toward, still on the right side of the property line, but towards the back of the building, or towards the back of the property, I should say. And then out the back of the property, whatever hasn't been infiltrated in the ground just overflows by a sheet flow off the site. And that's what's happening right now. It's basically that rear right corner is where most of the runoff from the site, from the property right now, flows to. And it's interesting to note that right now some of Bedford Street runs down the gutter, and it actually goes down the existing driveway and then out through the yard and out off-site, off the rear property line. That driveway that's there now is being eliminated. So that runoff is going to go into the Bedford Street drainage system where it really was supposed to be done. So that's another element that's going to help serve to control the runoff from the site and make things an improvement for the down gradient abutters.
Are you proposing fencing along the lot lines?
Lamb and I have discussed that, and Lamb, the applicant, was in favor of having a privacy fence along those rear property lines. And that serves twofold. It protects his property and his interests, but it also makes for a good neighbor as well.
The problem being is that retaining wall is going to be higher than the 6-foot fence, I guess.
Yeah, in some areas you'll see part of the retaining wall.
So I guess my concern would be that if you have cars parking there with, headlights on, they're now going over the fence. It's not going to be a complete thick row of trees, I think, from this landscaping plan. Maybe it is. But then now you're shining lights across that entire West Chapel, Orange Street neighborhood.
There will be some vegetation that will be in that 10-foot buffer strip. Some of it will, mitigate that headlight. as soon as the car is parked, they're going to turn their headlights off.
So my other understanding, because we've had a lot of discussion lately about buffer strips in this town, is that there's a 20-foot buffer strip minimum for these types of properties. And right now, 10 feet is proposed. Is this something you're going to be asking for a waiver for?
No, I didn't intend on asking for a waiver on that. If, I believe that's section 66 of the bylaw.
Correct.
If I'm not mistaken. But what we've done historically in the past, you know, such at, I know that Steve Goslin did a project at 1147, I think was the number, but the planning board allowed for the retaining wall that's there to act as a screen. And the way that Sean Riley had explained the bylaw is it continues on, it talks about the 20-foot buffer strip, and then it says, or a solid screen, which could be a fence, or it could be a retaining wall, such as what was done with Steve Goslin's project on Bedford Street. I think it was 1147. I forget the exact number of it, but
The commercial or the townhouse?
the commercial.
Okay. I think what we learned from town council at our last meeting was that there's two things here. There's both a buffer strip where no action can take place, and then there's also screening. And there's some wiggle room on the screening, but it sounds like if what we heard from our council last time, that buffer strip is still 20 feet. So I think we definitely need to take a look at that. If we've used 10 feet in the past, personally, I'd argue that maybe we've done that wrong. I think the 20-foot buffer strip is important, especially knowing that neighborhood, considering you're going to be up higher than the surrounding neighborhoods, neighbors, residential properties. I think that needs to be part of this proposal. A couple more, I'm sorry to take this time. The building itself is going to be 3 stories, is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Roof above it or flat roof?
I believe it's a flat roof.
Flat roof?
Yes.
Okay. Apartments or condos?
They're apartments.
Apartments, so it'll be some sort of management company?
Yes, actually, it'll be owner occupied.
Okay. All right. The tree line that's there now on the corner, it's a pretty mature clump of stand of trees. Is that remaining or is that being taken down?
Part of it will have to be taken down.
Okay.
But we want to retain as much of it as we can.
Okay. And then the grass area is a kind of a gentle slope down to the building itself?
Yes.
Okay. The 2 parking spaces in the back, those are right up against the building?
The parallel ones.
Okay.
Yes.
So someone could open their door and hit somebody's window?
I don't believe there's any windows proposed in that area of the.
But they could open their doors and hit the side of the building, essentially?
Yes, they could.
All right. I would have a problem with that. I don't think we traditionally allow parking directly up against the building. I have a problem with the sidewalk directly up against the building, too. I don't know about the rest of my board members, but usually we have some sort of little buffer, gardening areas, pockets between the parking spaces and the sidewalks in the building, just to make it a little bit nicer. I understand these are in the back of the building, but still, I don't think we traditionally do parking right up against the side of a structure. Maybe my board members feel differently, I don't know. For our engineer, a couple of questions, just to clarify.
Yep.
So, the drainage coming down into the back where the basin's going to be?
Yep, this area down in here.
Yeah. Where are the drains actually back there? I'm sorry, that might be a question for the proponent. Where the,
If you wanna
demand,
maybe show it on the, on sheet
Sure.
5. I believe what he's saying is there's like a little bit of a scupper right there, a little paved scupper, and it comes in through here.
okay.
So we have 3 catch basins in the parking lot. 2 are right here.
Yeah.
And 1 is right here.
Okay.
And these are just drain down lines from the lawn area basins that would just lead down the excess water that hasn't quite infiltrated. That way it'll dry it out and it'll leave a nice lush lawn.
Okay.
Sheet 5, please.
Sheet 5.
Show the swell and how the water gets into that swell.
This is the swale right here, and water from this area here, there's a high point right here at the entranceway. The rest of the water from the high point goes to the catch basin. This runoff, instead of going on to Bedford Street, which I really can't do,
Mhm.
even though it's a small amount, what I did is I have to control it. You can see the grade contours and the spot grades directed to this. This is a bituminous concrete, a paved spillway, which puts it right up onto a grass swale, and it runs along, and then it just settles right in this area. And if there's an overflow, it sheet flows across this corner here, which is really the low point on the site, which is maintaining the flow path that's out there now.
So that back corner, those back spaces, is that kind of pitched to push the water back towards those middle catch basins?
It does.
Okay.
Yes, this area here, there's even a landscape, lawn area buffer right in here that'll have some flowers, and some plantings and some hedges, and that will be a good screen as well for this row of parking stalls.
Okay. 'Cause that would be my concern, is that if those basins got clogged and it's all running towards that back corner, it's just gonna waterfall over and,
Right, but the way it has been graded, this corner
Yeah.
it's a little bit higher
okay.
than these catch basin grades, so it's actually flowing away
Okay.
from that corner. It's only this small area that is routed around and settled in here. That's the only thing that's gonna be going back in that corner. And again, you can see this is the small watershed area that's contributing to
Okay.
this area. So, and that's part of the design. That's actually one of the major ways that this stormwater runoff has been controlled. The lion's share of the site, it goes into this structure here and this structure here. This structure also provides some recharge, some mitigation, but its real purpose there is to control the runoff and to get it to go where I wanted it to go.
Okay.
So there's
And-
no overflow pipe, discharge pipe from the galley system out through the wall or anything like that?
No, I haven't, I mean, I could put couple of small pipes out through the wall. My intent there, what I've done in the past, is that wall is gonna have to have some underdrain. And usually, the underdrain will have some, maybe 2 or 3 small diameter pipes at the base of the wall to, if there's any hydraulic pressure that occurs. And that can serve also to help drain the galley system down as well.
So it's Greg, right?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
And you're cool with the pavement levels, that's how it's gonna work, that's how it's designed, that's appropriate?
Yeah, it'll puddle up in the middle of the
Okay.
parking lot before it gets,
Okay. And so the retention basin that's proposed for underneath the parking lot, is it essentially a tight tank in many ways? I mean, it's a tank underneath the ground, right?
yeah.
Okay. So right now, rain falls on the property, it all kind of sheets down towards the back corner and off to other properties.
Correct.
Correct. So under this, it would sheet down into this retention tank, and then what happens to it?
Over time, it'll draw down and soak into the ground.
It goes into the ground, it doesn't get, routed out to,
Designed any kind of overflow pipe that, once it gets to a certain level, just goes out, or a drawdown pipe, like a smaller pipe at the bottom.
Yeah.
That would let it drain off slowly.
but most of it goes
So,
down into the ground, doesn't go out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And we have a bunch of comments that he'll have to address that might affect what those peak elevations are, and he may have to put more in, or
Okay.
to compensate for.
Thank you.
You all set, Rick?
I'm all set.
Any questions from the public? If you could, yes, give your name and address, and please. Sure, you can use the mic if you wish.
My name is John Libby. I live at 21 West Chapel Street. My house is my yard is behind 207 complex that they're talking about that they want to put up. The whole thing is ridiculous to begin with, number one. Number two, my yard, if you walk down my driveway, I want you to picture walking down my driveway, looking on the right-hand side, and seeing this complex going up. It doesn't belong there. I'm sorry, but it does not belong there. His presentation was beautiful, but it does not belong in 207 Bedford Street. That's my comment.
Thank you. Please, anyone can have a chance to talk, and clapping or cheering or booing or whatever isn't unacceptable in this forum. But who else would like to speak? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm the owner of 197 Bedford, and I am directly beside 207. My name is Brenda Oliveira. You can call me Brenda. So like I bought my property 2 years ago. I came from Quincy, Massachusetts to get away from noise. And even though I'm on the main road on Bedford Street, it's still quiet. I work in Boston. I get to come home and I get to go to sleep. And still, all I hear is little car noises, that's about it. But you know what, at this point here, I don't mind something being built there, maybe a two-family or something like that. But at this point, 11-unit property, 21 parking spaces. I'm not good with this at all. I'm very uncomfortable. My sister lives with me, she's retired. We didn't want the noise, that's why we moved from Quincy. So, I'm really concerned about that drainage going to the back, because I'm feeling like it could go to her property, which is, like in the back of of 207 Bedford, as well as into my property, which is directly beside his 207. And also, the garbage, you're talking about 21 parking spaces, 11 units, you know what I mean? Like, I know you can control it, but I don't want rodents. When the daycare decided to build that up, whatever, I was new to the neighborhood, but they built it up and everything. The noise level was ridiculous. Me and my neighbor, Janice, there was lights sometimes, all sorts of time of the night and stuff. Still, right now, their lights beam into my sister's bedroom in the front. I don't want any more lights. I'm tired, I want to go to sleep at night. The rodents I'm afraid of, because I never had any mice or anything like that. After they dug up what they did across the street and built it up, I ended up with some mice And I'm not into, I never had mice, never want mice again. You know, I had to take care of that. That's gonna happen when this happens. I know that for a fact. And then when it's built up with 11 units, more garbage, and then more noise, if you have 21 parking spaces, where are the guests going to be? That's my question. If you, 21 parking spaces, not for the residents, or for the residents plus, you know, what do you call it, visitors? So where are the extra, the visitors going to park? I'm totally against this. I moved here for a reason. I didn't mind being on the main stretch, but this is not what I wanted at all. I thought that, you know, maybe building up 2 levels and maybe 3 family, whatever, but not, I'm not, totally against it. Totally against it, I'm sorry.
Someone else?
My name is Judy O'Brien, and I live at 36 West Chapel Street, pretty much directly across from Everett Street, and I would be about 2 houses down from the exit, I guess it would be, from this complex. I have several concerns, okay? One of them I'm concerned about for my neighbors, and I'm also concerned about for myself. I'm a little bit confused on the privacy fencing, okay? That would be on, you know, their backyards, but also on the West Chapel side. I'm concerned that as it is right now, we have cars that race across to get onto West Chapel Street. I'm not kidding, they're off the street. And it takes about 4 houses down before they land on the street. I'm not kidding about that, okay? So that's already a danger for us pulling out. I have had more times I've tried to pull out of my driveway, I look, nothing, I look, nothing, and there's a car that has come, and I barely can get out of my driveway. That's not kidding, okay? We have a lot of little kids on the street. We have a lot of families, young families that have moved into our street, people walking. As it is right now, the sidewalk on West Chapel Street is completely demolished. Okay, I have a big gully at the bottom of my driveway that, you know, has been eroding away because years ago a plow hit it. I have people, when we walk on West Chapel, you have to pull out into the street. You have to walk on the street in several places because of the sidewalk. We've been told by the town it is on the list. Yes, we've had people come down and look at it. It has not been, it'll be a while. And that's been several years now. So I'm concerned about, we'll go back to the privacy, sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. The privacy fencing, okay, and then you have cars with headlights coming on. So if we're pulling into West Chapel or out of West Chapel on Route 18 right there, I'm concerned about the lighting. Would the privacy fencing like not let us see that there's a car coming until all of a sudden there is a car there? I don't know what is planned for there. I'm concerned about lights in our eyes when we're pulling in and out of West Chapel Street off Route 18. So that's a big concern I have. I'm concerned about people walking. There's a lot of people that walk at night. You know, I mean, granted, yeah, there'll be headlights, but during the day, no, okay? So that's one thing. I am concerned about the water basins that'll catch the water because of prior project right behind me that was approved and went through. We have major water in my yard all the time. We have Plymouth County mosquito control that comes down for years now, since this project went through. They come into my yard, they go into the property behind the neighborhood, or between the neighborhood behind me, into that gully there, and then they go into the catch basin on that, which is Coburn Lane, and they take samples, okay? I'm concerned about more mosquito issues. I'm concerned about any water that may be retained in that basin. Will anybody be contacting Plymouth County and ask them to also check that situation? Because they're in the area already? That's, you know, there's been a lot of West Nile, Tripoli the last couple of years, so I'm just concerned about adding more breeding grounds for that. All right. I live in a very old house, 1800s. From the project behind us, and then the project on the other side of Route 18, that luxurious apartments or condos that were supposed to go in, that now has nothing but problems, we had a lot of blasting. Not only did we have blasting, but we had the rocks being tossed, you know, down to break up. I've had damage. I'm concerned about, will this project be more blasting? How are they going to prepare that property? I'd like to know that. Who is going to be responsible? There's 21 spaces in that property, okay, for 11 apartments, okay, and then the residential house also. Do none of these people have parties?
The residential house will not be there. I mean, it'll be just one building.
Okay, so for this apartment building then, okay, will these people not have parties, graduations, baby showers, et cetera, birthdays? Where will the excess parking be? Because right now, if you're talking about probably West Chapel Street, and then cars, we already have a problem with cars coming down across, I see major accidents. I'm talking major accidents just from coming in and out that access, and then extra cars on the street for, you know, parties and stuff. Let's see, I'm concerned about the racing, the extra traffic, for the extra people that will be living there. And I also would like to know, will this project be overseen by the different boards? Will your board come down? Because I'll tell you right now, when we had the project going on behind us, and we kept saying we have problems, nobody came. Well, one person came because he was kind of told to come down, but nobody else came, and I know a lot of you weren't on the board back then. Who's going to oversee this project? Who's going to make sure that things aren't impacting us, hurting us, you know, going according to the way? Because things happened in the neighborhood behind me, and it was, whoops, well, that shouldn't have, we didn't want that, but it's too late now. Too late now. I'm paying the price. The Libbies live right next door. We have other neighbors that live right next door on Route 18. That's not fair for them to pay the price for somebody else. I don't have a problem with anybody building on their property, doing something. I have a problem with it impacting other people. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. To answer your question, the building department on the construction of the building would be responsible for that, and then also the planning board would send the engineer, which is PMP, down there to check it. So that's, yeah. And then the other question that probably could be answered, do you know of any blasting? Do you know what the formation is?
Well, I've done test pits in the area of the recharge system, the galley system. That's really the deepest structure that's going to be built. The building itself is a slab on grade, so there'll be a 4-foot frost wall with a slab poured on there. I did hit some ledge down at about 56 inches, 67 inches, so about 5 feet down in this area here. I hit some, I did hit some ledge, but that's not in the area of this. Down in here, there weren't any ledge. You know, I got down deep, you know, about 10 feet, and so I don't anticipate there being any blasting. If there is, it would be minimal. And I'm not sure, I mean, if there is ledge, it being a slab on grade, it's possible that the frost wall could be poured on top of that ledge if it's down into it. But that would be a call for the building inspector, if he would allow that. if it even came to that.
Just for information, as far as blasting is concerned, the biggest problem in the world when you have blasting is if you can't show what your property looked like before. In many cases, in fact, when they, I know in town, when they've done blasting for sewer or water, many times they will go in and, if the homeowner will let them, they'll take pictures of the house, the ceilings and so forth. And if there is any damage, then the town or the contractor is responsible for repairing it. But many times, it becomes a civil case, and most cases, you just need to have proof what it was before and what it is now. Just for your, and what else, you had another question?
I just wanted to say, we, the neighbors all got together and hired an environmental engineer, who came down and did a lot of,
She needs to be.
Yeah, you really need to use the microphone,
I'm
so,
sorry,
yeah.
but anyway, we did have an environmental engineer who did find that we are all like one big piece of ledge.
Yeah, I mean, the town will the planning board has an engineer that reviews all the work that is here on the grades and so forth, and the drainage and so, all of that. If you wanted to get another engineer, the only problem that you would have is you would have to get permission to come on the property of the people that own the property. That's another whole issue, and I couldn't really answer you. If you were to say to me, can I have my engineers go in and check his property, if he refused to have you come on the property, then you would have to get a court order or do something, but it wouldn't be anything to do with the planning board. I hope, I'm trying to make myself clear on it. Do you understand what I said? Yeah.
Couple quick notes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think in response to one of your points, I don't believe there is a privacy fence proposed for along West Chapel, so wouldn't be an issue. Second, anyone else live on Everett Street? What's that big feature out back on Everett Street between Everett and Orange Street?
Granite ledge.
Very large granite ledge. So,
That's my yard.
yeah, okay.
The granite ledge is my yard.
Yeah. And I live on Orange Street, and I can tell you, anytime a truck hits a pothole on the Route 18, it shakes my whole house. So be aware, be cautious, and that this might become an issue somewhere in that property.
I
Can you-
can't hit the, it's just a quick comment.
It's still, they can't hear you at home.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Then you're gonna get my whole speech.
You can do your whole speech, or just, because they're gonna come back to us and say, you didn't get them to the microphone.
I was just going to say quickly that when it comes to the ledge, I can't put a shovel anywhere in my yard that it doesn't hit rock within a couple of inches. So that's just that. Okay, first of all, I want to
Your name
apologize.
and address, please.
I'm sorry, Jan Siri, I'm at 104 Everett Street. My apologies first to the gentleman engineer and to everyone for interrupting him before. I've never attended one of these things before, and I embarrassed myself, and I really meant no disrespect whatsoever. Okay, here we go. In the 30 years I've lived on Everett Street, I've watched my little neck of the woods become more and more commercialized and congested. By example, in no particular order, and all within 1/10 of a mile, a strip mall where a house once stood. A single home turned multiple apartment building to the left of that strip mall. A daycare center, the likes of which the International Space Station can see illuminated at night. A wooded parcel turned into a cul-de-sac consisting of 3 or 4 McMansions behind you, which, when they blasted for the construction, as I've heard, cracked some of the foundations on the homes along West Chapel. I know, I was home. It broke bottles in a case that I had on the floor in my pantry. I've seen hundreds of units in the apartment complex across the street from where this unit is proposed. directly across the street from it. All of this has gone on despite the issues Abington faces with regards to water shortages and water quality, which is likely due to the stress of water availability. I moved to Ever Street for the quiet, established, mostly single-family oriented neighborhood that it once was. As far as multi-home buildings on the east side of Route 18, south of West Chapel, all the way to the Whitman line, one, what looks to be a single family converted into a rooming house. North of West Chapel, all the way to the Weymouth line, one apartment building at a four-way where all the other corners are businesses. At what occupancy? At what percent occupancy is Ivana, or whatever they're calling it nowadays? Abington doesn't need 11 more apartments. Right now, it takes some mornings, without exaggeration, up to 5 minutes to get out of West Chapel and head south on Route 18 in the morning.
That's fair.
I'm taking my life in my hands with a line of aggressive drivers coming out of that complex trying to head north. Right now, at my peril, I have to perform a Boston block and hold up that northbound traffic until the southbound lane has an opening. It's only going to get worse as more commuters transition back to their workplaces. And now you're looking to add another 21 more cars to this immediate equation. I've seen the plans. I don't want a parking lot in my backyard. How many more trees to be felled? How much more shade lost to asphalt? I want the deer that hides its young in the thick while it grazes in my backyard. I don't want more light pollution. As I look at the plans, the proposed location for the dumpster for the 11 units is adjacent to the gazebo I have planned for my backyard. I can just imagine how pleasant summer nights would be sitting out while those fumes waft through. The non-transient, long-time, high tax-paying Abington residents don't want another apartment building. I'm sorry you've spent so much on your plans. If you want to make some money on your property, upgrade it, flip it, make it a two-family. Don't degrade the quality of life of your surrounding, long-established neighbors. I hope this hasn't been a fool's errand. I hope I haven't wasted my breath and everyone's time, and I appeal to the board to protect us and consider the quality of life and protect us from this proposed building.
Thank you. Just because it just came up, a letter from the Abington Water Department. Dear board members, the Abington-Rockland Joint Waterworks voted at their April meeting to temporarily suspend all water hookups until we complete a supply and demand study to see what we have for water availability under our Massachusetts DEP withdrawal permit. With that being said, at this time, there is no water available to support the increase of water usage for this project. Joseph LaPointe, Superintendent, Abington Water Department. Any other questions?
Quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
When we had the sewer moratorium,
Yes.
we still had projects coming before us, I believe.
Yes.
This is about when I started to get onto the board.
Yes.
Did the board reject those because of the lack of sewer capacity, or did we approve it contingent on it coming somewhere down the line and they just couldn't start building until they had it?
Well, obviously, they couldn't start building until they had that. That was one thing. And each individual, I'm sure there was some that were withdrawn, and there was probably some that went forward, but Rick, I don't remember.
do the other board members remember how we handled that? Whether we gave conditional approval or if we just said, no, this isn't happening?
Pretty sure we approved some subdivisions, but they can't
Yeah.
go forward without sewer or water, so.
Yeah. I know that was the case on,
With the one they're building now.
right.
There may be,
Rosen's
that
building.
may be a question for town council, but if the application was made before, I think, this might be confirmed with town council, if the application was made before the moratorium went in place, then they might be grandfathered.
Right, and
But that's for
They're
town
not
council.
gonna get any building permits without water and sewer.
Yeah, and it's too expensive for them to build an on-site system if sewer was coming down the line, so they wouldn't build an on-site system, they would wait.
They can if it was capable.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make my perspective of this clear. It's a nice effort of trying to make this site work. Academically, it's a good effort. But without the proper buffer zones, without some zones around the building itself to allow for the stairs, and I imagine these first floors aren't right on the ground, but I noticed the elevations show some vestibules, parking, snow removal, the retaining walls all the way around kind of remove the ability to plow snow in here. The building's too big. It's 10 one-bedroom apartments, plus, and then one weird one 3-bedroom apartment, which I imagine.
that's what the owner's gonna.
That's going to be the owner,
Yes.
which would require quite a few parking spots and that. But I personally, I can't be on board without the buffer zones. There's nothing on the side, if this job was like, wow, this is a miracle job, and this is a great idea to do with this piece of property we never thought of, I'd maybe behind some of the, looking the other way about how this thing flows, but everything that was mentioned here tonight, I don't see how in this configuration, how it can be approved, at least I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, a duplex or a triplex is one thing, but not 11 apartments.
Yeah.
That's just, I think it's nuts, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments from the public? Yes.
Most of the stuff that I had on my list, you guys, everything was addressed. Josh Bellavis, I'm at 112 Everett Street, right next to Libby's and Jan. But you just mentioned the snow removal piece. It's like on the corner where I am on West Chapel and Everett. This year was great, but on some years, there's amount of snow, and this, I'm not exaggerating here, till May 15th one year we calculated, because that's the only place to put it on the corner. And my wife and I, she couldn't join us tonight, we're curious about that. Where would the snow go? You just addressed with the retaining walls, there's really nowhere on the property to put it. So we had a major concern over that. I didn't even realize till we were here that there's gonna be a 5 to 7 foot retaining wall along Libby's driveway and Jan's backyard with the structure on top of that. I looked at, what's the max, 35 feet or something, I think, for a building in the TC zone like that. So I had a lot of questions on the zoning, a change, or special permitting, or whatever it is that needs to happen for it to be zoned for a multifamily like that. Right now, I think is it 2 to 3 family, right? Or some commercial use on there. But we were really concerned with that water plan. You guys addressed that. It's like, I can't even water my lawn, or not supposed to wash my car and things like that in an 11-unit building. The traffic, everybody else talked about that, getting out of West Chapel, especially if you're trying to take a left. I can't even imagine. And I looked, and you guys did a nice job I did a lot of research on, I don't know if it's setbacks and all that stuff that you guys need to have from the intersection for that. And it looks like you hit a lot of the things that I had questions on. But it's tough getting out of there right now as it is. And we have some neighbors on the corner, and sometimes they park there, and I know they're far enough from the corner, but it makes it still hard to get in and out of West Chapel. Never mind having a driveway, an extra driveway right there with however many cars backing up the intersection. The speed is crazy down the street. I have a almost 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and we have to be extra cautious of who's coming down there, who's turning down Everett. People fly down there. So again, that traffic piece, would there be any study on anything like that? I hope it doesn't go, but if they did get the waivers and things like that they needed, would there be a traffic study on that? I did see that it's a one-way, but that's still gonna back up traffic on 18 too. And then overflow parking, everybody's mentioned that 21 spots or however many it is, but you have the exit right here that goes on to West Chapel with the sidewalk. Overflow parking, that's probably gonna end up on West Chapel right there. There's not that much space, so we just have a lot of concerns with something like that going in right there. Thank you.
Yes.
I'd just like to point out as a traffic reference, I retired from Old Colony Planning Council last November, but I know OCPC has done traffic counts on 18, probably near that site, and that's something that any of you can look up. Go to Old Colony Planning Council, look up traffic counts, and, look where it is. It might be some in the vicinity of that site. The other thing is the Old Colony did a road safety audit at 18 and 123, which is right down the street from you guys. And again, that's all on a public record. I used to make my living as a traffic planner. I still work as a planner, but anyway, this is all public information. And, I'm just pointing you to a source, Old Colony Planning Council, traffic counts, road safety audits. It's all public record. Go on their website, look this stuff up. And that would be good information for you to have.
And to reiterate, just so you know, because the question was asked about zoning, that's at 7 o'clock on June 10th here at Town Hall. So that's something that you all should attend. You have a question? Yes.
I have one quick question. I started out as I began the drainage design using what's called the Cornell rainfall intensities. The draft of the stormwater bylaw specifies Cornell. Traditionally, or historically, I should say, what has been approved in the past was the TP40 intensities, but then I noticed that the stormwater bylaw is just a draft. It's my understanding it hasn't been promulgated.
We'll probably do that tonight.
Yeah.
So
Well,
the
so
bylaw has been adopted, the rules and regulations are getting adopted tonight.
Okay,
The
so,
bylaw was adopted at the town meeting last year.
so does that mean that Cornell is required
Is
as
that what
of
it says
right
in the
now?
bylaw?
What's that?
Is that what it says in the bylaw?
I couldn't find in the zoning bylaw anything that referenced the Cornell method
I
except
didn't see it in here. I don't recall seeing it.
It's in the bylaw. and the
in the stormwater bylaw it is.
In the stormwater bylaw that was on the website?
Right.
Yeah.
But it just said it was a draft.
It was adopted at the town meeting last year.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Obviously, this isn't ready for a vote or anything like that this evening, and there needs to be communications between Ross Engineering and PMP through the planning board to answer all the questions that are there. And the hearing would have to be continued, obviously. I'm not quite sure that there's enough time, because what time does it have to be done by?
This Friday.
This Friday? Yeah. For the July meeting, which is the 12th, I don't know whether you would have all that information ready by this Friday. Excuse me.
Mr. Driscoll has to review it, too.
Right, yes. That was part of the reason for
Well,
the...
Vince, if you get it to me by Friday, you may have X amount of time to get it reviewed before the next meeting. That's why I have the filing deadlines,
By this Friday?
by this Friday.
Yeah, no, okay.
I know.
That's pushing it. I don't want to rush it.
And then we don't have a normally scheduled meeting in August, so the next meeting of the planning board would be September 7th. I know you've heard a lot of discussion tonight and some views of the planning board members. But obviously, it's your prerogative to go forward and answer all the questions and so forth that were done here tonight, and to be on the agenda for September 7th, if that's what you wish to do. You don't have to give me an answer. Well, I suppose, you know.
Well, we might as well put it on for the 7th,
Okay,
and if anything changes, we can try to contact Liz.
yes, yes. So a motion from the board would be to continue the hearing to
The meeting in September.
meeting to the September meeting.
Motion made.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved. So we'll continue the hearing to our September meeting, and that'll be published and downstairs also. And if you have any questions, just give Liz a call at the planning board.
That should give us plenty of time to have some back and forth.
Right, yes.
Comments
Yeah.
for days.
Yes. Yes.
Not knowing how this works, what does this do for Thursday's zoning board? Is that included?
That's a whole separate situation. They have to give approval for it. So you need to go to that. A lot depends on what they say also. And I'm sure,
It's Thursday night here, at 7 o'clock, right?
yes. And I'm sure the developer will be there for that meeting also.
Can you send me the electronic copies of the architectural renderings?
Why Marshall is no longer building inspector?
Right, so the electronic copies
And
much
those
better
are
than
nice.
them.
Yeah.
You should see what should be.
Couldn't just be something normal.
Next on the agenda will be the site plan review, special permit for 100% residential use in the CBD, 176 Wales Street.
Sorry, would you repeat that, please?
Yes, that will be for the site plan review of special permit for 100% residential use in the CBD, 176 Wales Street. I don't, make sure Liz, that comes back, make sure from her, but I think you're all. You might be involved with the Oak Street, I'm not quite sure. Let Liz come back and find out I don't know whether anyone's showing up for it. Right.
What's going on with marijuana growing facility? Is that before the board here or is it the zoning board?
It will be before this board.
But not tonight.
Not tonight, no, no.
But you're doing Oak Street.
Please?
But you're doing Oak Street.
Yes, yes, so we're going to touch on it anyway. I'm going to wait for Liz to get back, just in case. Is there anyone here tonight, as far as you know, for,
For this?
yeah?
Yes.
There is someone here for that,
There's
okay.
multiple people here. I think where it is, and we can do this
Okay.
first.
That's just continued, right? Or is this something?
This is continued from, thank you.
Say right first.
You okay? Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. Frank Marinelli for the record. I'm an attorney representing Stephen Zabowski, and the proposal is for 176 Wales Street, and it is a 10-unit proposal in the R20 zone with Central Business District overlay on the property. For those of you that weren't here on May 3rd, I'll just briefly recap. We've designed 10 units as shown on the site plan. With me is Stephen Zabowski. Steve is an owner and developer, manager of real estate projects for the past 25 years. He owns over 48 residential units and manages about 14 commercial units that he also owns. He is the designated developer for the South Franklin Elementary School in Holbrook. That is a 13-acre parcel, and we had an overlay district there, and we're designated by the town of Holbrook to develop 40 townhouses and 10 single-family homes. So you have an experienced developer. I know that he just did 351 Summer Street in Abington, which is a 10-unit development. This would be about a $1 million investment at the property. The property, as I mentioned, is in the R20 zoning district. It's a high, listed in the bylaws as high residential, high-density residential, with the Central Business District overlay. The property is 90 feet wide by 2.5 times that dimension in depth. It's 270 feet deep. I'm sorry, 300 feet deep. It's a 27,000 square foot lot. And what we've designed lends itself to the property. Sean, if you can just flip over to the site plan, please. Steve Zabowski is here, and also our project engineer is Sean Hardy, and from Hardy and Mann Engineers, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. The last time we were here, we were asked pretty much three things. They are 10 single-family, they're 10 one-bedroom units, and we were asked first to try to provide more parking. We had 30% more parking than required under the bylaws. We had 13 parking spaces, and we were able to redesign to provide 15 parking spaces. So now we have 50% more parking than required under the zoning bylaws, and the 15 spaces are shown on the site plan. Secondly, we were asked to present the architecture, and you can see from the rendering where Steve is standing, it is a really aesthetically designed 10-unit building with gables, with cement board, clapboard type materials, cedar shakes, even a balcony there on one of the units. And what we've designed lends itself to the deep layout of the lot. One of the things that we tried to do was to preserve this natural area here, which is back of the site and in the middle of this neighborhood here, which is shown on the site plan. And so we've preserved that buffer by orienting the building and the parking the way that it is designed, and you can see in that conceptual overview. We have 89 Caltech chambers for on-site drainage and infiltration, and that reduces the stormwater flow rate and the stormwater volume. So Sean can speak to that. We can answer any questions that you might have. One of the things that is pointed out in the peer review by Norwood Engineering on the topic of special permit for residential use. The peer review, Norwood Engineering states that it's our opinion that the residential use of the site is appropriate for the following reasons. The location on Whale Street is not ideal for a commercial use. Being disconnected from the main businesses in North Abington, the walking distance to the businesses would be encouraging for residents to use. The existing recreation open space facility across the street supports the residential use, the general residential nature of the surrounding area. So the surrounding area is, as the board knows, at 200 Wales, there's a commercial building, and on the other side, there is similar residential multi-unit inventory. So with that, I think that we answered the questions from the last time. The landscaping, the third thing that the board talked about was parking, architecture, and then landscaping. We have over 200 approximately 200 plantings, a little less than 200 plantings. We have 4 serviceberry, if you can point them out, John, on the, we're showing 4 serviceberry shrubs to create some nice streetscape from Wales. And then on the boundaries, on the borders, we have about 100 inkberry shrubs and another 89 Forgilla shrubs. So that's, that's the presentation. Those are the areas that we were asked to address when we were here on May 3rd, and I think that Steve and Sean have done a good job doing that.
Just to clarify, that CBD is not an overlay district, that is the district.
Okay,
so
CBD.
R20 may abut it at some point, but it's CBD. I'm not quite sure whether it goes all the way to the back, does it?
No.
It does, yeah. Okay.
Thank you. And so the CBD requires for a standalone residential that we seek a special permit from the planning board, and we respectfully request. I did present it the last time, Mr. Chairman, and I'll go over it just, again, I think this podium has a 10-to-1 slope. But under 17538, the CBD allows residential units on standalone, provided that the lot is at least 5,000 square feet, so we're over 5 times the minimum lot size under the bylaw. Secondly, the building is connected to public sewer, which certainly will be. Thirdly, 1 parking space is provided for each unit. We have 50% more parking than that. We've got 15 spaces for 10 units. Fourth, no more than 2 bedrooms per unit. All 10 are 1-bedroom units. And fifth, all units will meet the building and health code requirements. So with that, we respectfully submit that we've fulfilled the criteria of the special permit and would ask your approval. We are, per the Norwood Engineering peer report, going to the zoning board on Thursday night because the zoning table allows a 6.8 setback on the easterly side, on the easterly border, because of the width of the relatively narrow width of the lot as compared to its depth. We're going to have a proposed 6.8 on the easterly border, and also for permission to have the parking, or a portion of the parking, on the side instead of entirely in the rear. Because if we were to put it entirely in the rear, it would implicate that nice buffer area that's shown with natural vegetation. So we think those are reasonable requests that can be granted by special permit from the zoning board, and that's what we'll be seeking on Thursday night. We respectfully ask for the special permit as to the use. Thank you.
Did you want to have Steve Zabowski?
Sure.
Also, I don't
Yep.
know.
Steve, do you want to say a few words?
No,
or-
I think that Frank did cover, Steve Zabowski. Frank did cover a lot. You want to make sure that.
Everybody can hear you.
Yeah, why not?
And see.
Thank you. I think Frank hit on a couple of the ideas that we spoke about, and one of the gentlemen on the board asked for the
kind of a 3D rendering so you can see what the building would look like from the front aesthetically. And then we did an overview, so you had an idea about how we wanted the parking, so we wouldn't have to go past that one area in the rear. Actually, there's a couple of neighbors here whose house or land would abut that one section, the vegetated area on the left. We got the landscape done, and I'd say I like to have a nice building. I don't know if you've been by 351 Summer Street. I spent a lot of money on landscape. I put irrigation systems in, and actually I'm having that done. I'm doing some, not to get off base, but some slice seating so we can get that a little thicker down on Summer Street. Just trying to get, I enjoy going by a nice looking building. You can see some of the bushes we put out front. 3 different styles of exterior. So I think we've qualified everything that was asked in the zoning.
Thank you. Dave, your comment?
I'll go through quickly and just highlight under each of the sections whether everything's been addressed or anything that needs to be taken care of. Under zoning, as the applicant said, they've applied to the Board of Appeals to address comments 2 and 3. Comment 1 is within the purview of the planning board. That's the special permit for all residential use of the site. In terms of parking and circulation, they've addressed all of the comments, although the major comment that we had remaining, which is going to be up to the planning board to make a determination of, because it's really not an engineering issue, and that is the interior landscaping or lack thereof. As you can see from the site, from the property line to the face of the building is all pavement. As Rick mentioned earlier, usually there's some landscaping strip up against the building between that and the sidewalk. Given the other aspects of the site in terms of preservation of existing vegetation, some consideration might be given to the overall design. But as I said, it's not an engineering issue, and the board will need to make a determination on that. There were no comments on traffic that needed to be resolved. They were basically observations as to whether or not traffic studies needed, or whether or not sight lines were not adequate for the site. In terms of stormwater design, they had met all of the comments we had. One thing I would ask, because it was news to me that the town had adopted a stormwater bylaw, and we really have to see what storm design is going to be used. What did you use for the stormwater criteria?
I forget, but I do know that as a result of some of your comments, it did get bigger on this go-around, so.
Because they're saying that there may be the potential of using the Cornell method. We have suggested to use the NOAA.
NOAA, yeah.
Yeah, so we have to see what they have for regulation in that bylaw. So you may have to look at.
I'll just have to confirm, yeah, but we have adequate room to make it bigger as needed anyway.
So that would be my only remaining comment, is that we confirm what the stormwater rainfall events are going to be based upon the bylaw. There are no outstanding issues on the utilities. Grading has been addressed. The only issues on lighting and landscaping was to provide some additional post lighting at the rear of the site on either end of the parking, and to illuminate the dumpster area, and to provide any information on whether or not there's going to be wall lighting around the building. And then a previous reference to previous comments about the internal landscaping. The miscellaneous comments have been addressed. As the attorney noted, we did recommend that the special permit for all residential use be granted based upon the items he read for us. So in summary, the comments in general have been adequately addressed, and the board can consider approval of the project, subject to any conditions they feel are warranted.
We do have a letter or an email to the planning board. I am unable to attend planning board's meeting, but as an abutter, I wanted to offer my support for the proposal submitted by Stephen Zabowski to build a 10-unit apartment building at 176 Wales Street. It seems like a reasonable use for the property and in keeping with the neighborhood. I appreciate that Mr. Zabowski's contacted me to discuss his plans and answer any questions that I had about his project. I drove by other property owned by Mr. Zabowski and was happy to see how well maintained it appeared. Alan Curtis, owner, 200 Wales Street. Any comments from the public? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Berry Brooks. I own the property at 347 Adams Street, and we are here just because we want to, if the project were to go forward, we want to ensure that that area stays wooded. That actually is our backyard, would be. So it's very important for us to not have additional parking put back there, to have headlights and shining in our backyard at all hours of the day and night. So other than that, we felt that Steve was respectful and, upfront about everything, and we just want to make sure that it does not, the trees don't get cut down. And that a lot of the houses around in the corner on Jefferson Street, they get water in the basement. So cutting down any additional trees, I think, would also contribute to water coming into the basement. So that's it. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Board members? Yes.
So there's a note in here that we're actually, this project would increase drainage onto Wales Street. Is that allowed? Can we put more water into a public way as part of a drainage for a project?
Dave?
Yeah, it was a very small amount, and I guess your response was that there's existing.
Yeah, overall, it's a reduction in runoff. The site's kind of domed as it is and sheds it in all directions, so to break it down into all those small sub-catchments is not really typically what you do. So that's why we went with an overall increase the drainage system, all of the roof runoff, and like all of the pavement shy of just the last 20 or so feet of it from the driveway gets put into that infiltration system. So all of that drops out, and it is a reduction for all storms of runoff that leaves that site.
It's very small. Like you said, it's only about a 20-foot stretch of 20-foot wide driveway.
I guess, is there a way to put a figure on it, like, 0.5% increase, 10% increase, somewhere, I mean, just to better, you say some, I mean, is there a way to understand what that means?
Well, he can clarify it, but I believe what he's saying is that there's a decrease.
Overall. So it doesn't go into the back, doesn't go into the side, but it does put more into our public way.
No.
Just said it puts more into Wales Street.
No, I just said, I believe I said there was runoff going into Whale Street.
But not more than what.
I didn't say there was
Okay.
more. Yeah, I did. I said a small increase in stormwater is proposed that's from the driveway. And the engineer's response to that was to say that overall, there was not an increase.
Nope, I understand, but,
It's just hard because typically a drainage, it goes to a point and that's their design point. This lot doesn't really do that. It just generally goes in all directions, so.
what I guess I'm just trying to understand is, are we talking, If it's a 0.5%
minuscule.
increase,
Yeah,
not worried about it.
It's minuscule.
If it's 10%, well, maybe we need to talk to John Stone and see if he has any concerns. That's kind of the reason I'm asking this.
I
don't want to approve something and have John Stone in here the month after saying, what did you guys do? I now have a puddle in front of
I would
my
say
street.
it's negligible. It's a very small pavement area.
Okay. Speaking of department heads, has this been seen by the fire department in terms of access for ambulances and fire apparatus? I see it's a, they didn't send anything back? All right, because it's 20 feet wide, and,
It goes out to like 15 department, well, not 15, 5 of you, I get 18 copies.
Yeah.
I keep a copy, the 5 of you, and then fire, police, water, sewer.
okay.
I think the 20 feet is adequate. I think that's what NFPA has as a minimum for access is, excuse me, 20 feet.
And it's like the main entrance is right at the front, and it's only set back, you know, the 10-foot setback, so that's probably how they would access.
I think
as
we
well.
would ask that there are very clear no parking signs along that strip,
Certainly.
because if there's a car parked there, they can't get through. Simple as that.
That's at the entrance?
Yeah.
Going in, okay.
Yeah. Is there a privacy fence proposed along the sides, either side?
We weren't proposing the primary fence, but we are gonna be putting the bushes
Yeah.
all on, as you can see, running through here. On this side, Sean will describe as a small wall that comes up right there, make sure everything stays on our site as far as any snow, melt, anything else that could, and then these bushes are gonna be gone in this area here.
So-
There is, the neighbor's not here, Mark, I forget his wife's name, asked me to just to fix the fence that was here, which we plan on.
So the retaining wall on the west side, so you have the roadway and then the retaining wall is up 5 feet, or it's 5 feet from the neighboring property?
No,
up-
it's only,
I'm
it's,
sorry, I didn't mean 5 feet, I misspoke.
it's like a foot and a half
Yeah,
high.
foot and a half, but
It's-
that's, so there's nothing between the next property and that retaining wall, it's just,
Correct.
okay.
And then, but the bushes sit on top of it.
And then the bushes set on top of it?
Yes.
Okay. Two quick notes. I know I mentioned last week about the architectural design, and that front part of it is lovely, so thank you. Is there anything that shows the rest of the building?
Just the plans that you have in front of you,
I don't have anything, it's just what we got last time.
you just have the front
Yeah,
visual.
yeah, just,
Then
you know,
I don't have anything that will show what the side would look like, other than the black and white that you have.
all right, so that part hasn't changed, just that front of it?
Just, well, you're looking down at it here, but she's talking about this.
Yeah, more the
That same
parking lot
area.
side.
More or less what you see here.
Okay. Is it all flat across?
It is.
Okay.
It's flat on, behind here it gets flat when it comes back in again. This area.
Yeah. Okay. My personal thought on the full residential is that it makes zero sense to have a commercial component there. In talking with someone who I think helped redo some of the zoning, you know, whatever it was, 15, 20 years ago, my understanding was, their fear was, if you took this out of the CBD, but the building next to it was in CBD, you might start getting into like spot zoning concerns, and so it was kind of left in. But, I mean, there's no need to have a commercial space there, so I'm fine with it being fully residential. I'm still concerned that it just quite doesn't fit, and I think it's an A-plus effort to get everything in there and to be sensitive to the neighbors. I just don't know if it quite fits, so that's what I'm still wrestling with. And maybe that decision has to rest with the zoning board, but that's also where my head is right now.
I would say I would agree that the building's a little large for the site, mainly because of the amount of parking you're able to allow it. But there are parking spots out around the field for if guests spill over and they're never on the same time frame as ball games going on, et cetera. And the only other thing I would say, because it's been more apparent now, we've had so many projects coming before us, that there's no space for recreation. It's a great site layout for an office building, but there's never, we've seen a lot of, this project, last project, a lot of projects before, they're filling it all the way up and not leaving any recreational space where you could put a, you know, hibachi, or if anybody uses hibachis anymore, but a grill, that kind of thing. But that's the only thing I'd mention is, but I also appreciate that the fact that that back area is being left wild for the neighbors to not transform their backyards into something different.
They do have the park across the street, which is.
They do have the park, yeah.
And realistically, developers come and they look at the zoning and they see the coverage allowed for the building, and they have to buy the land, and they have to recover their investment. So they're gonna present plans, present the maximum coverage allowed for the building on the lot. So, I mean, you know, I hear what you're saying about space for hibachi, but
And we've actually left more open space. We haven't maxed it out. You can cover 60%. We're at 54. So that's, you know, 54 point. Yeah, or the right number, but it's 54.1. So, I mean, that's significant. That's like 10%.
not quite maxed out. but-
We also made that a little bigger to add the extra parking spaces at the request last time with the board, so we balanced that.
I applaud you not going for the full coverage of the lot that you're allowed and, you know, giving a little bit more room. But that's what we see.
Yeah, we did, as our neighbor spoke, you know, we did want to leave the buffer between Jefferson and Adams, and Steve was very conscientious about that when he went out and spoke with everyone in the neighborhood. I mean, he has met with everybody, so, you know, we had support the last time, we've had letters of support, and, you know.
This is nice to see that you did the outreach. When they did, years ago, they did a 40B on Summer Street, and they were outstanding in the neighborhood outreach that they did, not the 40B at 0 Summer Street that's being proposed now, but there's an existing one, big apartment complex next to the train tracks. And I've been on the board for 24 years, and they did outstanding outreach, so this isn't being not objective, I'm just applauding that you did the outreach tonight.
Thank you.
Is there an opportunity in, say, the east? There's no north arrow on the colored plan, so I have to go over here. On the east, to carve out a 20 by 20 section of the wooded area that abuts, there's a large building and pavement next door, to kind of stay away from the neighbors, but is there opportunity to carve out a 20 by 20 area to put a couple of picnic tables and have some outdoor space?
Yeah, that makes sense.
This is the building.
You know, 15 by 15, something.
It would almost be put aside a parking spot, it's a little bigger than a parking spot, probably this size. Next to this parking area, shoot back there. You're trying to use the road here.
It's not a big piece.
No.
You know,
It's not a big piece.
it's not a big piece of land.
It's two spots, you carve the parking. You want me to go to the mic?
Can I suggest maybe possibly of leaving some of the trees in that area that you're talking about and make enough room? Instead of just cutting all the trees down in a 20 by 20 spot.
Oh, yeah, we could make it so it would just be clear more in the middle.
Yeah.
These bigger trees that you see now would still cover it.
Yeah.
Judiciously.
Be like a roof here.
Judiciously.
Yeah, it's not a dense, thick forest by any means, so I think we could certainly do that. You know, if you're saying a picnic table or two in that area, that, I think that's I don't think there's wholesale cutting of trees that would need to happen to do that.
It might be Asian.
Yeah,
because they have-
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of just making a flat spot. And my personal opinion, I don't think with one-bedroom apartments, there's gonna be a lot of people back there doing that, but just a personal opinion.
you know, you get the right people.
Yep.
Okay?
Any other comments? Comments from the public at all? Then a motion to close the public hearing might be in order at this point. If that's what you wish to do.
A second.
Motion made and seconded. So a motion to deny the project or to approve the project. If it was to approve the project, it would be to the letter of June 2nd from Norwood Engineering, making the no parking sign at the entrance, to the entranceway to the parking area or to the development.
You doing the site plan first or the all
Well,
residential?
whatever you wish to do. You want to do the site plan, the CBD district first? You want
It'll
to-
be all residential, the plan's not.
Okay, so motion on that. I know we had a motion. We'll disregard and withdraw the motion in the second, and if that's okay, and then we'll do the special permit first. Someone wants to make a motion.
Motion to approve the special permit with all requirements.
CBD district.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Now on the, I'll let you do it again. Make the motion.
I didn't think we got that far, Bruce, I didn't hear you.
It's seconded by Jeff. With this letter of June 2nd, no parking sign at
Did
the,
you want the parking signs on either side?
Great question.
They're not already there? Signage is like there.
Could I
what,
say something?
yes, go ahead.
What if we stagger it? You have one up front, and then when you pull in a little further, instead of the two across from each other? I just don't want somebody to miss it.
Oh, no, I would think one would be down, well,
Yep.
I can't imagine someone parking on the front.
Right.
I know it just, but if you had one down coming out and one going in,
Right.
that would seem to cover that. Rick, is that all right with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the small recreation area in the back?
Yeah, small recreation area in the back, and that the trees are to be maintained on the property that basically exist now. I mean, obviously, if they get disease or something, they have to come down, but that canopy be maintained. Do we need to give a waiver on the 10-foot setback requirements, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah, so would that be in your motion also?
Yes.
Okay. And the use of precast concrete curb should be considered, or should be done for the, so they can't run into the building and so forth. Curb stops,
Oh, curb stops.
yeah, they should be provided.
Mhm.
And then some landscaping provided between the sidewalk and the driveway of the building.
Want to do that, or?
That's something the board's gonna have to decide if they're going to want, because it completely alters the site plan.
My personal opinion is he made an effort to save what's out back. If you wanna make the parking lot, so he needs to put more landscaping, I think you're gonna end up into that wooded area.
So it's
out
not
back.
necessary then?
I personally don't think so.
All right?
He did a decent job of landscaping along the property line.
If we could just,
Yeah,
Yes.
right,
Yep.
right.
yeah, we would like to have the room to do that, but if I'm. if
That way
I
it's not going
just-
to be done, it's not going to be required.
Okay, thank you.
It's also not going to be visible from the street.
Right.
You're right.
Dave, did they clarify the size of the material of piping, pipe runs?
Yeah,
That's all
those
set.
those will be
All set.
included in your reference to the
Okay.
letter. I think you've hit the major land use issues as opposed to the technical.
And then the additional top and bottom of wall elevation should be
Yeah.
provided on the final plans, that's,
That would be included in your reference to the letter.
the type of tree that they actually have there is sort of a multi-stem thing. It's not something that gets really big, it's more of a shrub. I think that's it, unless someone has something they want to add to that. So on the motion, made and seconded, all those any further discussion?
Just so you understand my vote, I think you've done an A-plus job trying to get this to work with the site, to respond to comments. It looks nice. In my opinion, we're just stretching too many rules and guidelines to make this thing fit. So I'm going to be voting no.
Any further discussion? On the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. So it passes 4-1.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't run into him in the dark.
That's what my daughter said at home.
Can I have the architectural renderings? Sadly, I have to keep for the public record everything they've seen. So you can have the board back, and I'll just take the pictures.
If you want, just keep the board for now.
No, that's okay. Have you seen my art? It's the land of many boards. Right, exactly. Easy. Thank you. No, that's all right. You can just leave them and I'll find a happy home for them later on. They're such nice prints, but I usually don't have these high-end. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm gonna leave those here for now.
Public hearing, Phil brought from outside with no permit, 67 Oak Street, continued.
Mr. Chairman, I have not received an application from Mr. McKinnon, and I haven't heard from him asking for continuance. So I don't know what you guys want to do, but
I would
This is, this right now for 67 Oak Street, it's not a site plan review, it's just a fill permit
just the
still?
fill permit.
Okay, all right. So that's simple.
But it could enter and get involved with something else, as other things have.
And he hasn't
He hasn't responded or anything, so
responded in months.
So did we The last meeting, we were gonna send them something, did we do that?
No, I never heard
And
back from town
enforcement,
council.
and enforcement, she suggested we do
Right,
some
I
sort
did,
of a letter
I
of
did email
enforcement.
them.
So I would suggest that we have an enforcement letter from town council.
Can we get it off the agenda, though?
To deny it?
They can reapply, yeah.
Yeah.
I just, it's.
Yeah, okay, so a motion to deny the application would be in order. So
moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say
Wait,
aye.
discussion would be, we're gonna send an enforcement letter.
Well,
I did email town council, like a couple of weeks ago.
I know it was last minute, we kinda put her under the gun, and that was her
Right.
suggestion, but.
so the motion would be to deny the application and to send an enforcement letter from town council. That
One
sound-
more question.
Yes.
Considering all that's going on, I assume the town manager's CC'd on that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I've
we
kept
have to
them
get
in
permission from him to send the
use
letter.
town council.
Right.
Yeah, so I actually ask him every time I'm gonna send something out,
Okay.
so he knows.
As the acting building commissioner.
So, on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Unanimous. On the public hearing, fill permit, 652 Adams Street continued.
Mr. Chairman, I have not received an application for this as well.
By there the other day, there's still got vehicles all over the lot.
No, that's the
That's
next one.
662, that was.
Oh,
approved.
662.
This is the
Yeah,
residential.
this is 652. To the left of it. These are the two properties to the left and to the right of 662.
Yes, I'm a resident of 652, may I speak on it? At the last two meetings I attended on this, I asked and the board had agreed to send a couple people out to see the site, get a look at the site and advise where to proceed from there. Nobody's come out. Mr. Hughes made an appointment with me last month, but
I didn't see you, but I drove around and I saw it. Yeah.
you can't see my yard from where you drove. You pulled in my driveway and then you drove over to Mr. McKenna's property.
Okay, well, I can, well, sorry.
You actually, the plan was continued from April, and you didn't
Correct.
think you would have time in May to get the you need a plan. And so
I
you
was
would-
seeking
you would do
advice,
the plan, and then you asked if you could have till June
yes,
to get it back to the board, and,
upon advice from the board. The board did agree to come out and advise me.
but that doesn't change the plan that you needed to submit to them for the fill permit. That's what they're acting on, it's not necessarily.
Well, that's what, as far as the plan, I'm sure after the last 9-10 months, you guys are somewhat familiar with what's going on. I can provide you photographs of what it looked like before, the excavation, what it looks like now. But I thought the general agreement was that it would be best if a couple members came out and just put eyes on it to see what was going on.
That, obviously, I was one of the ones who was going to go out. and
Right, and I
look at it.
think you got exposed to COVID or something.
So I couldn't get there.
Right, right.
In any case, and then I know Bruce was going to go out the last time, and I guess.
You didn't make that connection, I apologize for that.
He didn't
It happens,
see you,
it
but.
happens.
Well, if I could understand, in your case, you didn't do any filling. This is the fill that your neighbor put into the back?
The neighbor, he's here tonight, I don't know if he's gonna speak or not, but. Oh, good. He excavated from my property onto his property, and where he took it from there, I have no idea.
Oh, right.
I was not involved in any of the decision-making, any conversations while the excavation took place. As soon as I gave him permission to remove soil from my yard, he just went, and as he's been doing all along, just does what he wants to do.
Just trying to understand what triggered you to have to do a fill.
He filed a complaint about the filter he removed from my yard.
Permit was necessary for over 250 yards to be removed or brought on. You didn't seek the permit, you're obligated to get your drawings together, and I'm here to make sure you do it.
Okay, one at a time, and I guess because of the way this thing is going, what we're gonna need is, you're gonna need to get a hold of an engineer firm and explain what happened. I'm sure they can do something with aerials before or afterwards, and give us an indication of exactly what was done, and fill in that how many yards were removed and where they went. And at this point, it needs to be from an engineer.
Well, I understand
the difference in topography and whatnot has to be displayed. But as far as, you know, I don't have any information as to where it went, who took it, who trucked it, anything.
Well, I guess at that particular point, you just mentioned, have the engineer, I mean, you're gonna state what you know, and then bring it before the board, and we'll decide what needs to be done, or if it's acceptable, or whatever happens. I mean, I think the problem is that a lot of things have got involved with this.
Yeah.
with this. And we have to treat everybody alike, and so at this point, Patrick, you need to get a hold of an engineer, and have that firm show what they believe has happened, and then present it to this board, and then this board make a decision on it.
Okay, and this is just for the soil removal permit? It's not like a site plan review or anything like that, right?
No, it's not a site plan review,
Yeah.
but you're telling us that you removed so many yards of fill, where it went, you don't happen to know, but you know who took it out of there, or where, you know, who you contracted with, or whatever you did. In other words, everything that you have, and then the engineer can show us what the grades are now, and then we can make a determination.
Okay. All right, so I'll need till next, well,
Right.
I'm obviously not gonna have that by Friday.
No, and I would suggest that you be on the agenda for the September meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Sure.
Is that agreeable with the board, by the way?
Quick question, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman?
Yeah.
Do we still have the excavation of sand and gravel and other earth materials bylaw on the books, or is that?
175-34.
Yeah, was that removed when we did the whole new fill bylaw?
The whole new fill bylaw would be what?
Those are all under the general bylaws, so I don't know off the top of my head, they're not included in the zoning bylaw.
175-34 is in the zoning bylaw.
Right, that's the excavation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and
I mean,
the-
technically,
and
this is
the fill
excavation.
one is a general bylaw.
Yeah.
That the planning
Still
board is
technically
enforcing.
there.
So if it's that would be zoning enforcement. That wouldn't be planning board if it's in the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
It would be downstairs.
I believe the bylaw says that the decision is up to the selectmen upon review from the planning board.
Well, I guess that's my question, is that?
The selectmen, originally, it was under the selectmen, and the selectmen had the planning board
Which
take.
one?
Oh,
Which bylaw are you
excavation.
talking about? Yeah, the excavation, the fill bylaw is ours. The
Right.
selectmen gave it to
Right,
us.
I didn't have any fill brought in.
A couple of years ago, and that's in the general bylaws.
Correct.
I think what you're talking about is in the zoning bylaw.
I'm just saying, I don't know if this is a fill permit issue or an excavation.
Sounds like an excavation. I think they removed soil from the property.
So I'm just looking up to see what's on the books right now.
It's, the bylaw is removal or, you know, bring it in, either way.
I mean, on the website, it's, the special permit comes from the Board of Selectmen.
Well, it shouldn't be.
For the fill bylaw?
Yes.
No, the excavation bylaw.
The excavation.
Well, that's, so then it's the board of selectmen.
Making sure that this qualifies as excavation versus whatever the fill bylaw wording is.
Yeah, everything was removed, Rick, nothing's come in.
But the fill bylaw
The fill
covers
bylaw
both
does
coming
cover.
in and going out,
Yes.
yes.
I mean, technically, he didn't fill in, so he needs some sort of a plan to show where the grades are, where the water's going, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing at this point is just to make sure we're not causing water to go off into other properties,
Well,
that it's graded right.
I think that's why you guys were gonna come out, so you could see that basically, I mean, you know the story, it's long, it's
The
drawn.
problem is we're not engineers.
I'm sorry?
So the problem is we're not engineers, we can come and look at it.
Yeah.
We need a plan on record
All
for
right.
grades, and unfortunately, that's the way things are going here.
No worries.
Yep.
So
if
we would have to continue to September?
We'll continue the, if the board, continue the hearing to September meeting.
I
So
guess
we'll-
you kind of understand where that's at, right?
Yeah, I get it.
Okay. I'll make the motion, continue.
Okay, Patrick. Any other comments? All right, so motion on the floor is to continue the hearing to the September planning board meeting. Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. So moved, unanimous.
Can I ask a question? It's not, was the special permit ever granted for next door? I don't think.
No, that's-
62 for the excavation?
Please?
He originally was supposed to come in for a special permit for the excavation. that
Who
he
are you
did.
talking about?
That's selectmen, right? If the selectmen are issuing an excavation permit?
He brought Phil in.
We're not,
It's actually not on the agenda, so we can't talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep, the open meeting law is very clear that you cannot wander afield off of agenda items.
thank you.
Stormwater management rules and regulations?
Save the best for last.
Woo-hoo.
The continuance was passed.
Yep, they voted it, yep.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
So 67 Oak Street will be continued in September?
No, that was denied.
That was denied.
They'll have to redo the whole
And-
thing.
You'll
they-
have to do the whole thing all over again.
And
Which they haven't done anything.
And they,
That's,
town council will be sending him a letter and forcing him to get it done, and if he doesn't get it done, he'll get fined so much a day.
Well, that's
So-
what he had before.
Well, I don't know whether
He
he
hasn't
actually,
really
no,
got
he hasn't
that.
got that letter,
he
no.
came in, I went through the process with him, he was all ready to go. It's my understanding he's actually had somebody draw plans for him, but he has not reached out to me at all.
Can I ask you a question, one more question? What about if you rent out your property to trucks? like
That's off that's not on the agenda, so they can't talk
No, I
about
was just
that.
in general in this town. Like, you know how they had over on the.
You need to talk to the zoning enforcement
Yeah, that would be
officer.
zoning enforcement.
Down
Yeah.
in the zoning.
Yes.
That's downstairs, yep.
Okay, all right, thank
Yep.
you.
You're
You're
welcome.
welcome. Sorry you had to sit so long for that.
We're getting used to it.
All right, stormwater management rules and regulations.
Nobody hung around for this?
I don't know whether you've all read this thing.
I did.
But
So painfully, long story short, we did the stormwater management bylaw last fall, was adopted. So now we need some rules and regulations to facilitate the bylaw. So there's been the town had an engineering firm that drafted these, and I think you could see
Oh.
where they may have borrowed pieces from other towns. It's been to town council, it's been back to a group of department heads and town departments who have reviewed it and kibitzed about it. But it has to be adopted in June.
Do we know, just out of the blue, how many towns have already done this?
Everybody has to have it done by June.
It's
Yeah, so I think a lot of other towns did it last year or the year, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're very late.
So if we can go with, we'll start out with page 1. I know down where it says authority, on the last, these stormwater regulations may be periodically amended by the planning board in accordance with the procedures outlined in the Abington Stormwater Bylaw.
Which
So
I
it-
think says you have to have a public hearing. I don't
Okay.
have the bylaw with you.
So it's a public hearing of the planning board?
Yeah.
It's not at town meeting or anything? It's all done with the planning board,
I
right?
believe so. Yep. Do you want me to go grab my folder which has the bylaw
Okay.
on it?
Step out, I gotta step out for a second.
All right. Everybody wants to stand up?
Yeah.
If somebody could get the Bruins score for me while I'm gone?
Wait a minute, they're not playing.
What are we doing?
It's not tonight.
Let's break.
They want the Bruins score.
Oh, that's right. It is tonight.
Yeah, and the Red Sox. What about the Red Sox? Who's winning?
Not the good guys.
Well, the Red
Ah,
Red
well, you're not
Sox
allowed to say that.
Red Sox took care of the Yankees with that.
Islanders are 3 for 3 on power plays. So
Wow.
that's the difference.
Where are they, in the second, third?
It's going back to old-fashioned hockey.
4 to 2, 18 minutes left in the third.
That's about time. That other night, I don't know what I was watching. It was disappointing to watch them play the other night.
Oh, I mean,
They held their own, but sort of. It seemed like, sometimes they get on the ice and they look like chaos. I don't see any plans, I don't see any thinking going on. People doing wide slap shots from 90 feet away.
I mean, what's his name missed the open net. That's
Oh,
there.
yeah. But they razzed up on that.
Sneezing all weekend, Kathy comes home and I start sneezing. I get allergic to my wife.
Tuca is out apparently. Not playing the third. Must be injured. Oh, make that 5 to 2. Don't need to worry about catching the game now.
No, no.
5 to 2.
That open net changes things. I wish, I watched the last game, but then you hear the news the next day, and they say, oh, it was, they don't talk about open net or anything else. It sounds like they got all these goals in regular, before the last 2 minutes. And if you didn't see it, you wouldn't understand what actually happened, because it's very misleading.
You should get half a point for open nets like that.
Yeah,
Gotta hit it twice to get a point.
Well, I missed my sport's biggest race. I missed the Indy 500 this year because we went to a graduation party. So I had to listen to it on the radio. But it was worth going to a graduation party.
That's a long process.
Listening to a car race on the radio?
Yeah, they have Sirius satellite radio. And that's how, back in the day, people used to listen to it. But we went to a graduation party. It was worth
Well, this is 20-2 authority, so it,
So are we
And
looking
just
for
so-
all the places that says planning board?
so what's happened is the selectmen have appointed all of you and the planning board as the SWPA.
Oh, the SWPA, so they appointed you.
Right.
So when we need an engineer to review some of this stuff,
Yes,
So-
who's
yes.
paying for that?
We have a separate fund that they have to pay for, that the applicant has to pay for, and it was determined that the planning board was probably the best option, because even though some people might go through conservation, not everybody was gonna go through conservation necessarily.
I get it,
Right?
I get it.
So there's a special permitting authority that the Board of Selectmen appointed at their last meeting, or the meeting before that, which is the conservation chairman, the planning board chairman, the building inspector, the health agent maybe, and John Stone, who is five of them. We're gonna have them meet and transfer their authority to the planning board.
So they haven't done that yet?
They have not
Oh,
done that
okay.
yet.
So be prepared.
Be prepared.
All right. So I thought that was done, but.
In that case, is there a way we can get a primer on what these new rules mean for what we have to review and look for and that sort of thing? Because
A lot of it's right here.
there is a lot of it, but, you know,
but just
but like, what are the standards for some of this stuff? And
I think that's one of the problems is we're going to have to find out what the regulations are at the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Because otherwise, we're putting an awful lot on our engineers to make up their mind for us.
If you read through this thing, the applicant pays all those fees, which could be substantial. This could cost them as much as it does now for coming in here with a site plan.
It's, yeah, I mean, because it's our friends at the state and federal level. This is all being done under the MS4 permit.
yeah, this is something. So do we need a vote to fill in some of the blanks that are in here? You know, page 1, insert new bylaw number.
I don't-
deleted.
No, that
That-
will, so that's a bylaw. These are the rules and regulations. The bylaw now has a number.
Okay.
It would have received a number last.
But I guess, do we have to vote? Is that part of our motion?
No, no, it's because, so the bylaw is here and somewhere else, and then these are the rules and regulations, so these are how to implement the bylaw. And it's, but there shouldn't be any blanks. It should be, you should have the copy from 329.
Yep, but like on page 7, there's chapter XX of the town's general bylaw. I mean, there's a
Oh,
couple
yeah,
spots.
so that, yeah, that'll have to get, I don't know what number is assigned, so I can write that down.
And
So-
what will trigger this is their exact, where they're located on the map? Is that what will trigger this?
No,
It's everything. It's basically any disturbance of an acre or more.
Really?
Right, yes.
I
Anything.
didn't realize it was that sweeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so the town has to comply with an MS4 permit, so most of that has fallen on the DPW, most of it, like the big 99% of it. So these other chunks that need to be done are falling back to us, so the stormwater permitting authority, these rules and regulations.
All the administrative stuff.
Yeah, so all of that is here, and then in addition, FEMA has required we update our map, which we did, map and bylaw, they gave us a new model bylaw. So it's a lot at once to try to wrap your head around, right? And I don't know that that was all intentional, but it's,
So on page 2, 3.3, once formally adopted by the planning board, these regulations shall be binding on any other town board, commission, or department which the Board of Selectmen designates as a municipal body responding to for enforcing these regulations on the stormwater. So that's
it's your
right there.
first one, about where the, I'm just
Oh,
gonna look up
oh,
that
right here.
section in the bylaw.
That
and
was
make sure.
authority, that,
Oh, quick question on page 1, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I hate to go back, but 3.1, should that be amended considering what we're gonna be doing, stormwater permitting authority or its designee?
this will be after we have the meeting with all the department
No,
heads.
you're right, I can add that. Because they're gonna designate the planning board.
But they haven't had the meeting yet, so
Correct,
we're
so
taking
we
it for
can't do that
granted.
yet.
So they could decide not to, right?
And then they'd have to do it.
Right, right.
Do you think they're gonna decide not to?
You can always vote no, you're on that committee.
All right, you're all set with that?
Yes.
Anything else on 2? I sort of made some notes, and if you have any notes that you want to bring up on the pages as we go through, I mean, otherwise we'll be here all night. But, so that's 2. 3, I didn't have anything particular. Or 4.
Low-impact development, the definition. I understand generally what it means. Does that also, do you think it includes tree clearing or clearing of land?
No, I tell you, Rick, as I understand lit, it's the structure. It's doing things like getting rainwater off of roofs and stuff
okay.
like that.
Okay.
So it's a building design thing.
It does come up later on, though, Rick, on trees. I think it's 12-inch diameter or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we'll wait till I get, so on 5, which, it's interesting to me, but operation and maintenance plan, a plan that's on 26, a plan setting up a functional, financial, and organizational mechanism for the ongoing operation and maintenance of stormwater management systems to ensure that it continues to function designed. And that's what we've been fighting about on the planning board for quite some time with no real, so now it almost sounds like we have authorization. What? We don't.
This is so if the town approves a detention basin or swale or anything that needs to be cleaned and has an O&M plan attached to it, and we accept the roadway with those in it, we were responsible.
We're responsible.
So this is what, that's what they're making, this is part of that permit, is that those swales and detention basins get cleaned. So actually, that's starting, it may have already started.
Well, a few years ago, they made us clean out sewer systems and, you know, street drains and everything, but every so often and all that stuff.
Once a year now.
Yeah.
Yep, and now the basins, we have a list, and they've started cleaning them. I think it's gonna be a 2-year cycle.
I have a question about that, but we can get to that one.
Yeah, and that, but also this comes up again later on, so we, about, you know, it's 3 years and all this other stuff, so just keep that in mind.
I mean, you guys
What-
can always
What, 26?
not take the basins
I don't know.
as part of a subdivision plan.
But, so that's 20, that's the only thing I had. Anything else on that?
No, 5.
Which, one thing that I really picked up on, concrete truck washouts.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. You will tell you, Jeff, every single concrete truck that goes into any site ends up washing it out before they leave the site.
Down into the drain.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Usually off to the side somewhere.
Yeah, but it's done.
Yep.
I have nothing on 6. And on 7, that XX is probably somewhere, they fill that figure in on the, down the bottom of the page, under applicate, where it's yellowed. It may not be chapter, I guess they gotta put the chapter number in there.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's-
That's the state chapter numbers.
Yeah.
So the stormwater permitting authority right here is the municipal board or employee designated by the board of selectmen
Right.
responsible for enforcing these regulations.
Which will be the planning board, right, eventually?
No, I think they can, for enforcement, I think it might either
Building
be John
inspector.
Stone or the building inspector, right? It'd be
Thought
somebody-
that's, they were talking about, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly don't want to put anything else on John's plate.
On page 8,
Building inspector don't need it either, though.
page 9, I have nothing.
So it's a $100 fee to file, and then $2,500 to review. That's what it looks like.
For reasonable costs and expenses, but it can be more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's up to you guys.
If,
You can either leave it like that, or,
On
and
t-
then you can revisit it.
On 2A, it says, if prior to final action of the
Yeah.
plan finds it is insufficient, they've got to come up with more money.
That gives them wiggle room.
All right? And this, on page 10, C, you have to refund money that you've taken from them that you haven't spent, but I'm not quite sure what final action on said application means. Is that when we give approval or something? Or-
I think that's what that
Huh?
is. I think it's when we get approvals.
When we give approval, but then we still, I mean, they have obligations later on, you'll find, that it goes up to 3 years, so
All during
what,
construction.
what are we holding?
What? Say, we could say final.
That just has to do with the application.
This is just review of the application.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
It's
not
not on the
construction.
project.
All right,
Right.
That's a whole other thing.
I guess that answers that. Yeah, so
It's
that's.
good we know that, because.
I think I underlined it afterwards for express, yeah, for express and narrow purpose of verifying the information contained within the application for approval or denial. On page 11, sort of interesting, on that, the last paragraph of the first paragraph, last sentence of the first paragraph, the board shall also notify the planning board of that community. Oh, that's, I'm sorry, that, at the beginning of it, it says if it's adjoining towns, is that what it is?
Adjacent community.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
Makes sense.
Does it have to be a newspaper of general circulation?
It should say, the enterprise or any other newspaper of general circulation as determined by the SWPA. We had them take out the ledger because I think we could have them advertise in your paper. Oops! We had them take out the ledger because generally everything goes through the enterprise, so
But my circulation's higher.
I bet it is.
It used to be where you came from, whether you got the Quincy paper or the Brockton
Well, that's
paper.
me.
If you came
We
from,
got the ledger, I don't know.
My family
Yeah.
is from Quincy.
yeah, I know why.
My family is from Quincy because I'm not a townie.
Right,
'Cause I
you-
moved here when I was a month old.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway, that's why we always get the ledger.
Sorry, not a townie.
Well, the important thing is that neither cover Abington anymore.
That's true. That's true.
They both used to, and neither of them do now.
Correct, my mother's rolling over in her grave.
And then it's another thing that's interesting, on 7(8), it says, obviously, you can't go on the property unless you get written permission from the property owner. But later on somewhere, it says you can go on the property.
Yeah, that's the first one on the written permission.
That's access permission.
Well, this came up earlier tonight on that
Right.
community group wanted to hire an engineer and he couldn't go on the property without his permission.
If they deny access, does that mean we can deny the application?
I think that's too late.
Part of the review?
Well, I mean, if it was before you had the,
Well, part of the permit would be to be able to go on the property, I would think.
Oh, this is to determine compliance.
Yeah.
right, this is after the facts then, right?
So, yeah, so this was, that was actually town council weighing in. I have the original document, they added that.
With written consent?
Mhm. They wrote, in their opinion, it's unlawful to enter onto an applicant's land without permission or consent. Therefore, it would clarify the extent of permissible inspection.
So how do we do that?
No, they did it.
Oh.
That's why it was written consent.
Oh.
I mean, if you're filing an application, that should be consent.
Right. It should be
Effectively.
implied that you can.
Implied consent.
Yeah.
It's like saying to a building inspector, I need a permit for my electrical wiring, but you can't come inspect it.
Right.
What's the point?
That actually was brought up by one of the engineers. Is it possible to include language
And it isn't.
that says submittal of a signed stormwater management permit application constitute written consent? I think if they're granted, if the application is approved, then perhaps you could require written consent to enter onto the property for examination, because
So
you're gonna need people out there.
That would be
to look at
something
it.
we'd have to put when we have to vote.
Yeah, and as a,
Two. We have to take a vote
to approve the application.
We approve it, then we say that we want permission from the owner to go on the property to observe it as, you know, for maybe 2 or 3 years afterwards. Because in here it is, there's one place that says 3 years.
Yep.
So you could add that to decision level requirements.
Right. And then on page 12, the first 8.2, they just have to add, the stormwater management plan shall full describe. It needs to say fully describe. And then, which is, I'm sure it's in so many other regulations, on 11, you know, that, which can be a real problem, is that they have to give you a high water elevation and have to do the test between November and April. So obviously, if someone comes in in the summer months, they have to wait.
Liz, in terms of how this works, so let's say they're doing a site plan.
Yep.
Some of this is in the site plan. Is this basically a separate,
It's a separate, completely
Packet.
separate application.
all right, so we get a separate packet with all this information?
Separate packet, separate requirements, separate filing fees. We talked about maybe combining some of that.
We need a bigger file cabinet.
Well, that's kind of what I was like, I know it's more paper, but if an independent board was doing this, it would be a separate
Yep.
application.
Okay.
And that's the advantage of the planning board doing it, but, and theoretically, they could I mean, it would save them a heck of a lot of money not having to have 2 hearings and,
Yeah, so that's the other thing, is they can, if they're doing a public hearing for a site plan or some kind of zoning relief or anything like that with this board, they can include it in that.
That's more, we get this for the site plan, and then we're gonna get a separate one for the stormwater, so we're gonna get, in some ways, twice the paperwork.
Yeah. Or they can maybe just add one, do one sheet for that.
Yeah, I guess that's my kind of question.
You know what I mean, is that there wouldn't have to be a full set of plans, it could just be the relative
Yeah.
appropriate sheet to go with that application.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
and 13. And they do mention minimizing the total area of disturbance, which is sort of interesting, because we all know what happens. You know, that's one thing Rick's been upset about, is they just tear everything apart.
Zoom through.
Yeah.
There was a question on here. Yeah, so these are kind of some of the areas where, do we have the expertise to make the judgment, are they doing these things? Or is that just where our engineer's gonna say, yes, they're doing?
Our engineer is gonna review it.
You know, understanding exactly what erosion sediment control measures are. Like, do we need to be educated on what those measures are now? Or can we just trust that the engineer is gonna?
I think that's what we generally do now, is we trust the engineers. I mean, we're sort of lay people, and they're the experts.
Yeah,
And conservation is more into the erosion control measures anyway.
It's
With
still,
the
it's
hay
like,
bales
it's a
and
double engineer, between the applicant's engineer and our engineer.
Right.
It's like a redundant.
It amazes me that I haven't seen 2 engineers say the same thing yet coming in here.
No, there's a little bit of, it's either Mike's way, did I say?
Architects like that too?
Huh? No.
Yeah.
So one more question in this section in particular. I imagine the situation we had up at the Rosen property off Dorsey, where the stormwater was running down the streets and into side streets, that's not allowed anymore, I'm assuming under this. Okay. Is this where that is spelled out in terms of any runoff has to be contained someplace, either on site or within a designated nearby catch basin or whatever?
Looks like we took that whole section right up. O&M plan. Management easements.
Because that was, it'll work when it's all finished, it'll work when it's all finished, but it was 4 years before it was all finished. And
Right. It's funny, because in my copy, it's all line, 12.2, stormwater standards. The O&M plan, drainage patterns.
Okay.
I'm not sure that this is it, I mean, it doesn't refer to any state standards.
Refers to 13.
13 is the stormwater standards. And that's the low impact development. The Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, wait, wait, so back to 14, page 14, I have nothing on that. On 15, 14 is interesting, a description of how the project owner will inspect the site during the course of construction to monitor the management of stormwater in accordance with applicable town, state, and so forth. So, I guess that's one of the places where you say, can someone go over and check it? I mean, otherwise you're taking their word for it.
Yeah, to have someone to check the plastic fencing or the bales and stuff.
So,
I mean, it's just saying they need some sort of a plan, how they're gonna.
right.
When and how often
And
But it also spells out that at each phase of construction, they need someone up there inspecting it to make sure it's, which is something we wanted to kind of happen anyway. But
I think there might be in here someplace, I recall reading something that they had to have the planners produce a report.
yeah,
And the report is on file.
Right.
Because I think we were trying to figure out.
every month,
Who got those reports? And I think we decided they would go to the DPW.
every month they have to file a report during construction.
Yeah,
Yeah, because, stormwater management is important during construction because they don't have all the drains and stuff like that. and they
Yeah.
have to manage everything.
They're not messing around with this stuff anymore.
no.
It's been needed for a long time.
Yeah, 10.1, it actually says that these things are met at all seasons and throughout the life of the system. I don't know who the heck's, what, is that 20 years? Or?
Well, that would be interesting to get a figure on what they think the life of the system is.
Yeah.
So the operation and maintenance plan apply to both private and public, correct? Okay. So the concrete place does a project and they have to have an operations and maintenance. Actually, this is the other question I have. Does this include only projects moving forward or everything?
It's only stuff right now.
Okay, so you can't,
Everything else is grandfathered?
you don't go back and, okay,
No,
okay.
no.
This is where you referred to earlier on page 16, GI, maintain a log of all operations and maintaining activities for the last 3 years. Now, I don't know what happens after the 3 years are up.
circular file.
Yeah, because make this log available to the stormwater permitting authority. And,
I'll send you guys out occasionally to go look at logs.
I think that's the secretary's.
Oh, look at Bob's excited.
I said, I think that's the secretary's job.
I think you're excited to do this.
I've been thinking that some plan boards.
I'm still working for a state agency for another.
Right, there you go.
Another 3 weeks.
And then this we run into all the time with D, 3D. Like we have a problem right now with one development off Hancock Street, that the easements weren't given to us, or they weren't taken by the developer, and then all of a sudden the developer can't turn them over to the town. And that's caused a problem. But in D, easements shall be recorded by the owner with the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds prior to issuance of certificate of completion. I would think it'd be prior to construction. Wouldn't that make a lot more sense?
Can we change the language if it makes it tougher? I know this is supposed to some language we can't touch, but if we're making it tougher.
Can you ask that question anyway? Because we don't even, after what do they do? They haven't got it, someone else owns the property?
Prior to issuance of a building permit, right?
Yeah, it would seem to be.
Or,
Somebody's gotta someone's gotta be able to transfer those rights to the town.
The problem is,
What?
I think what they're saying here is, they can, I think the thought behind this is that they can start, if they transfer the land to the town, then they can't work on it.
That's
So
probably-
they have to go in and complete the project before they can hand it to the town.
But somewhere along the line, it's gotta,
So,
They
I mean,
can't-
we're in the situation we're in now, we'll never accept that road until that stuff's taken
Right.
care of.
And conservation is running into a very similar problem, like orders and conditions, or whatever, notices of intent, whatever they have to have recorded, didn't get done a long time ago, so when land is transferring now, it's, the land use attorneys are going, whoa, 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 whoa. So they're going through a lot of that right now, and they're trying to figure out how to turn that around, so that they get done at the time of issuance. But I will check that.
Because the next part 3 is about easements shall be provided for access and.
right, but
Right.
But if they don't, if the developer doesn't get the easements on the property that they transferred to the other people,
End up with a situation we have now.
that's what we're not, I mean, that's gonna be, explain that to them and say, how does this get resolved?
So it doesn't actually
sold
say that
away.
it has to be to the town, it says responsible parties shall include owners, persons with financial responsibility, and persons with operational responsibility during future years. So that's not necessarily the town if we don't take them.
No, that's true, but by the same token, I mean, we have homeowners that buy things and don't realize what the heck is.
I know.
See, 10-4 talks about shall be privately owned,
Yep.
inspected and maintained per operation.
Yeah, this is the problem, there's nobody there to, like you say, to tell somebody that this is their responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, they don't look at the deeds, they get the deeds after the fact, and they say, oh gee, you know.
What is it? I
I
bought
mean,
my
that's-
house, I thought I knew everything about it, then I
Let
found
the
out
buyer
the whole
beware.
strip of land beside it was mine.
Yeah.
It was a drainage easement.
Oh, yeah.
And see, this is 10-6 on page 17. Procedures for using dedicated funds established on escrow account. And the that's getting back to that again, that that's what they keep telling us we can't do.
So here's my question with 10-4, and this gets into it. 10-4, 10-5, 10-6, 10-7. All of these stormwater basins have to be cleaned out, past, present, future. But it also says we can set up funds.
Right. That's 10-6.
Yeah.
Which I think we did.
So,
I believe we set up a revolving fund at town meeting,
so moving forward, we can set up revolving funds.
so we have one already.
Right.
Right, so the account exists, it'll be in real time July 1st. And when I talked to John Stone, he said it's $1,000 a year, and it would be a 10-year minimum, so it's 10 grand for them to deposit. If the
But at the end
town-
of 10 years, what happens?
Right, well,
So theoretically, what they should be doing is they should be giving us a bond of, or maybe, I don't know, $50,000, $100,000, oh, if you need, you know, if they give you $50,000 and you think you're gonna get 3% or 4% on your money, then we got enough money to cover it, but if,
I guess that's my question, is it spelled out somewhere what has to be done for maintenance for these? You know, like, I'm thinking the one off like Jean Carroll Road. All right, pick that one. You know, you don't have to go in there and mow every single year, or whatever has to be done, cut it down.
no, so the O&M plans exist already, for a lot of these places, they get done, I think, like who? The project that's off of, it's off of Hancock Street to the left, it was a 2-lot subdivision, you guys.
Pusateri Way?
It was not Pusateri, it's the other one you did at the same time.
Oh.
They needed an O&M plan. They haven't come back to us for anything yet, but we didn't have that, and they were going to conservation.
Oh,
You know who I'm talking about, it was the two brothers?
yeah, they're not doing it.
Orchard Lane, down by Orchard.
They're not doing it anymore because DEP told me I had to get the Army Corps involved, so they dropped it.
So they were gonna have to go to conservation, and their O&M plan was gonna be part of that approval, which is why it didn't come to you guys first.
Right.
So a lot of these already have an O&M plan, because those have been required for a while, but I think that's been under the jurisdiction of conservation.
I mean, I know some of it is just making sure there's no garbage blocking the outfall
Right.
pipes and,
Right.
you know, but
Oh,
I don't think
the
that's,
racks, get the wrappers off the
Well,
racks.
too many times, it's all those tall cattails, none of that should be in there. All that stuff should be.
You can't take them out, that's the problem.
Yeah.
No.
That's a protected plant.
It's gonna fall back onto the town.
Ruin the.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's something you guys can think about moving forward, is how you wanna handle that, if you don't want to accept the basins as part of subdivisions any longer. And then,
I think you open up a whole legal can of worms.
I don't know, I mean, it's something you can ask, right?
Well, you ask them.
You know as well as I do, it's gonna end up falling back onto the town eventually.
so 17 and 18 gets into site inspections. Like, you know, you have to have an inspection initially, with site clearings done,
Right.
rough grading, final grading, I mean, every step of the way. I assume that comes out of the developer's pocket?
Yeah, if they own it, yes. If we have it, then that money in the revolving fund should cover some of it. Right?
This sounds like it's during construction.
Yeah, so no, that's on them.
So who
Well,
collects?
on
who
11.2, it actually talks about weekly inspections.
Well, I wanna know, you do the inspection, you make your notes, where are these kept in that, you know, someone could go and make sure they're doing it? Or at the end of it all, I wanna see your reports for the last 2 months.
So that would be on them,
That'd be in that.
yeah.
Permittee shall submit monthly control reports to the Stormwater Permitting Authority for their
Right, so I
designee.
think we may keep a copy, and a copy may go to the DPW. So they're in both places, so if there's a problem down the road, and they need to go back and look at some of these reports, they can do that.
Actually, another question is this their engineer representative or ours? Like-
Well, this,
Okay.
on 11.4, on page 18, inspection shall be performed by an independent third-party professional engineer. Alternatively, inspections shall be performed by a qualified employee of the town of Abington.
That's if
Who-
we had an engineer.
If we had a town engineer.
Yeah, so who is that? Is that any employee, or it has to be an
It
engineer?
has to be a qualified employee,
Well,
and there's currently nobody in the town that's a CPESC or
Okay.
a
I mean,
registered
I wish we
professional.
could create an enterprise fund for this position or something, because all the money could just come in
I
instead
know, right?
to fund that.
Well,
The problem is, I don't know how often this is gonna happen,
Yeah.
right? We're preparing for worst-case scenarios, but I don't know how many projects, so then the town engineer would not have a lot to do.
I'm sure we can find some things.
But just like what goes on with the 20-foot buffer zone, alternatively, inspections shall be performed by a qualified employee of the town of Abington. What does qualified mean?
Yeah.
And should it say, someone with a CPESC?
Well, I wonder if it's implied.
well, the P in that, to me, stands for professional engineers.
Right. So, all I'm saying to you is, who, you know, someone could say they're qualified, but they probably don't have the degree to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think the point's been made that we don't have anyone in the employ of the town right now who qualifies to do this.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
that's subjective, you know, who's qualified.
Well, the state, whoever.
But
sets
why
the
doesn't it
quality.
say it in here that the qualified person must have a degree or must,
Well, I know it's kind of words, but inspector qualifications gives it in that first sentence, and after that, the qualified employee has to be a person that has a professional engineering license in Massachusetts. That's how I read.
Yeah, but alternatively,
Inspection shall be performed by a qualified employee, which was described in the
Yeah,
inspector's
and they don't
qualifications.
specifically say that that has to be an engineer in that language. I mean,
No.
sense would be that it would.
that it should be, but it
Yeah.
doesn't say it has to be.
No, it doesn't spell
And
it
then
out.
all of a sudden, Mr. Lawyer gets involved with that.
So you want me to have?
I want
them
them,
add,
I want them to say how it should be done, yeah.
a qualified employee of the town, and then,
What does that mean? What does qualified mean?
Well, someone could get a professional certification without being an engineer. That's what, I guess we're asking.
And I don't understand this other one with 11.5. As-built drawings shall be submitted no later than 1 year after completion of construction projects. A whole year for an as-built?
We don't usually give them that long, do
something you've received.
we? At least that quantifies when they're gonna have to be in.
And then they refer to the surety bond, which I haven't seen it written before, but on 11.5, it's supposed to be a surety bond to complete the work.
It's written nice, it just seems like you needed a department to
This is
address
re-
this, a department.
Oh, welcome to my world.
I just can't believe what
I am
it,
the department.
Yeah, I guess.
Well,
just can't
yeah.
believe what it's gonna cost some of these people to do this.
I think that they're leaning toward having the towns have an engineering department. I mean, you know, whether the towns will go along with it or not. A lot of towns do, a lot of little towns do have engineering.
And then
That
you
way
get.
they don't have to hire a consultant engineer like we do.
Then you get it to page 22, and they talk about nitrogen, phosphorus removal, and all that other stuff, which is sort of interesting. And one's for new development, and another regulation for redevelopment. So they gotta remove phosphate.
Well, that's what's killing Monpont Pond, which is a public water supply for the city of Brockton. Because all those septic systems leach into that thing around all those houses around it. City of Brockton isn't happy about that.
And then you can, which is sort of interesting, on 24, you can waive the strict compliances with any requirement of these regulations where those 4 issues are, which is interesting.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
On page, it starts on page 23, last sentence, waivers. The SWPA may waive strict compliance with any requirement of these regulations where such action is allowed by federal, state, and local statutes and/or regulations.
Oh, okay.
It is in the public interest, a public safety issue exists, or it is consistent with the purpose and intent of these regulations.
Again, it's quite a call to ask for us to
Right.
figure out.
And then we may pursue all civil and criminal remedies for such violations. Interesting.
What's interesting is it says whoever violates any provision of these regulations, it can be a criminal
Right,
penalty.
civil or criminal.
Wish we had that, in some other things.
$300
Put them in
a
a
day.
chokehold.
As someone said earlier tonight, they're not messing around.
Liz, were you the one that said that there was a bit in here about entry onto prior property to perform duties?
There's, yeah, Wayne
Page
was talking
25.
about that
Have to get
earlier
permission.
At the beginning, that we need,
Read page 25. entry to perform duties under these regulations.
Third paragraph.
Yeah, right,
Or if authorized by the owner or other party in control. So it's still, you still need permission.
The extent permitted by state law.
Yeah?
All right.
I don't know what the extent permitted by state law is.
Yeah, that's my
I can
question.
ask that
I guess that's my question.
Because originally, what gave, I mean, it was written in that, like, a planning board member can visit a site for the purposes of reviewing it for the, that,
you can't.
you can't do that anymore.
No, you, unless someone says to you, you can walk on the property, you can't walk on the property. It's crazy, but you
And
can't.
it's almost better to get that in writing now.
Yeah.
That's like someone in town wanted me to walk some property with them, and I said, I can't, I have to get permission from the owner.
Well, like, so many of these projects that come in, and you need to walk the property to see what the heck they're.
But if you tell them that, you know, you need to go on the property to make a judgment, otherwise I guess I've got to disapprove it because I don't believe what I'm reading. Although if an engineer goes on it and says it's okay, I don't know what we do then.
Well, I love the time we did a property walk at the Summer Street 40B, not the Zero, I always like to say. And remember, they were having a paintball party on that property at the time. We were walking the property and hoping we weren't getting splattered with paintballs. That's where they built the big apartments, you know, like it says Grand Turk. Were you with me on that one, Jim?
Well,
I remember that.
do you want to have a vote?
Yes.
We have to have this.
It's gotta be done in June.
So,
You could vote it contingent upon the answers to those questions, so it's technically approved.
can we do that?
I'll make that motion.
All right, the motion's made, seconded, Rick. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. Anything else to come before the meeting
There
tonight?
was one, I brought it up a number of meetings ago, and it had to do with our zoning map, getting an updated zoning map that actually lists the name of the streets and,
So I actually have I'm working with OCPC.
yeah.
And I got the DPW street maps, which I'm also gonna give to fire and police, and it's just street names, but I'm gonna work with him to do layers.
Oh.
So we'll have zoning, the FEMA overlay, the wetlands overlay, all of that stuff.
CB, yeah.
Yeah,
Andrew Vidal, who is the GIS person for OCPC,
he's the bomb,
is
man.
extremely talented.
He's the bomb.
And he has a nice cat named Vladimir.
I don't know about the cat, but he's a nice guy.
He's a black and white cat.
No further business, a motion to adjourn will be in order.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded.
Second.
See you
Motion, all those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.